Hey, are you ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
You are listening to the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast, and since you are doing so, I can only assume that you are an awesome human. Okay, I know that I bring up different pronunciations of words, and I usually take a stand on one side or the other. That's because on all the words I have previously mentioned, it's very easy to see what the right side is. Today's word is different. I can't really take a stand on it, because I have heard it pronounced both ways by many different people. I need your help to end this once and for all. The word? Homage, or homage, depending on who you are. This isn't exactly a commonly used word, so I understand that some of you may have never even heard of the word before. If that's your case, then please don't vote on this. Your opinion doesn't matter to me. I'm looking more for those who have actually used this word themselves. So let me know. End my suffering. How is this word supposed to be pronounced? Because, as I have made it very clear, time and time again, the correct pronunciation of words is of great importance to me. Thanks. Now for today's episode. My guest this week is Rebecca Wheeler, who recently told me that she prefers to go by the name Beck. When Bethany and I first got married, and when we first started bringing children into the world, there were two other families that were also doing that. And these two families would become very close with us, so close that we would eventually come to consider them as family. As our families grew, all of our children would grow up together, as we ended up with 14 children among us. One of those families was the Wheelers, of which Beck, my guest today, is the third born of 6, and is now 20 years old. Having known her pretty much since birth, it was a lot of fun to sit down with her as an adult and hear her views on many different things. I was continuously amazed at her understanding of Scripture at such a young age, especially in a time when the Bible is something that seems to be pushed farther and farther out in many young, progressive congregations and circles. Topics in today's episode include Justin Bieber, working at Hume, Taylor Swift, Conan Gray, Glee, Indiana Jones, Shia LaBeouf, the Waitress soundtrack, Weezer, Lizzy McAlpine, Ashe, drug addiction, mental health, big pharma, anxiety disorders, stress as a good thing, processed foods, curing cancer, ADHD, homeschooling, backing everything up with Scripture, charismatics, worship services, speaking in tongues, how much of the Bible is true, and modesty. Enjoy the conversation. So I just start off with how's it going? What's your life look like these days? I've known you since before you were born, really.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of, how old are you now?
I'm 20.
You're 20, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because Bethany's like, I don't know if she's 19 or 20. I was like,
Bethany didn't know.
She didn't know for sure.
Oh, I thought you were
not your sister. Sorry, my wife. Yeah, I'm sure your sister would know.
No, yeah,
but
that makes sense.
My wife, Bethany's like, well, I don't remember if she's 19. I said, well, if she's 19, she's going to officially be the youngest I've ever had on here. But I have had two 20-year-olds, so you blew it. Unless we count months. But, okay, so you're 20 now. You're back. Yeah. You're home for a while. But
for the month. Yeah.
Okay.
But then I'm going to school after this. So, this time next week, I'll be in Costa Mesa.
Costa Mesa, is that a new school, or you're going back? You've already been there?
New school.
New,
yeah,
okay.
I'm transferring. I took a break. I did high school and then a year at Hancock. Half of it was online because I moved. Okay. And then I took a break while I was at Hume. I didn't do any school. Okay. And now I'm going back.
Because you moved out of state for a while.
Yeah, I moved to Tennessee.
Tennessee, okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
In 2022.
Okay.
In January.
And how long were you there for?
Less than 6 months. Hated it.
Oh, really?
Never going back.
Was it the weather?
It was the weather, and it was that I was in a small town.
Oh, okay.
And it was boring, and I had no friends. And I was doing online school, so I was literally just in my room all the time.
Okay.
Like,
weren't you living with your friend?
Yeah, I was living with
Sophia,
Sophia's
right? Okay.
parents, but Sophia didn't live with them anymore.
Oh.
So I was with like her younger siblings and her parents.
Okay.
Which was great. Like that side of it, I would live with them again in a heartbeat.
Sure.
They weren't awful.
Okay.
Just the place was awful.
The place was awful. Okay. Yeah, it's hard when you live in a place your whole life and try to go, because we were looking at moving to Tennessee too.
Right.
We still kind of are, and it's still on the burner.
Yeah.
But when we went to Orlando in July for a week with Bethany's work, we got a first taste of like real bad humidity, and it was like, ooh, this is like...
People like don't hang out outside.
I know.
Ever.
Yeah, exactly. It's horrible. But I mean, I know people that have been there their whole lives. They don't like it, but at least they're used to it.
Sure.
You know, like for me, I've been in this town pretty much my whole life. It's like I'm used to like 75 degrees, no humidity. Like it's just, you know, it's nice. It doesn't get real cold, doesn't get real hot. I mean, every once in a while, but not too bad. But I'm like, oh, I don't know if we could live in a place where it was like that all the time.
And people joke about that, of like how fragile we are that we live here.
Yes.
But in reality, like,
right.
I just don't want to leave.
Right. Yeah. Well, your parents are possibly moving out of state. Is that going to change things for you or no?
Not really,
You still
especially
wanna-
because I'm in school. I'm going to be living on campus for at least the first 2-ish years, probably.
Okay.
So I'll be there, and I've been moved out of their house for long enough that I don't feel drawn. I don't think I'll ever live with them again.
Okay. Except for right now.
Except
Aren't you
for
living there right
this
now?
Month.
Okay.
I don't really consider it living there because, like, all my stuff is still in boxes.
Okay.
And I'm just kind of hanging out for a solid month. I got here like a couple days before January started.
Okay.
And then I'm leaving.
And you came from Hume to here, and now from here to...
There was an in-between.
Okay.
Apparently I love moving. I counted it. This is like my 6th move. When I go to school, it'll be 6 times packing everything I own in my car.
Wow.
But before this, being here at my parents' house and just working at Luke's, I was in Murrieta, which is like kind of by Temecula.
Oh, okay. Still California then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was just down a little more south.
Okay.
And it's like an hour away from the school that I'm going to. So I was able to visit a lot and do like in-person meetings and figure out school from close by.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And so you're going back to school. Do you know what you want to major in, or are you still undecided?
Yeah.
Or?
I was undecided when I was at Hancock and when I did like classes for my first year. So that kind of came back to bite me because I didn't take the right classes.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
things that don't transfer.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I like school, so I do school till I was 35.
You like school? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
love school. I love learning.
Have you always been that way? Like since you were little,
No.
or no? Okay.
I mean, it's hard to say it's because I was homeschooled because there's like so many different ways to homeschool.
Yeah.
But I didn't like school. I just liked getting it done and like checking the box.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it was under my mom's homeschooling supervision, was like check every box, and I found that very satisfying.
Okay, so you like that.
I didn't love the learning part, but I liked the academic validation.
Okay. So you're one of those people who likes the gold star on her chart.
I love it. I'll work hard for it, and I like school in that way. And then I also have taken long enough and taken enough courses that now I know I like science, and I like doing labs, and that's what I'm going for. I'm going to be a biology major with a concentration in biomedical sciences.
Wowzers. Yeah. That's hardcore. Are you going for like, that sounds like it should have a doctor in front of it. Are you going to go for a PhD eventually?
Maybe. If all goes well and I am able to marry rich or something, maybe I'll go for a doctor's.
Well, if you're a doctor, you don't have to marry rich.
Well,
they would be marrying rich when they married you.
Eventually.
Right?
But again, that's not till I'm like 35.
That's true.
That I
That's true. Once you pay off your student loans and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what you're going to, and I'm sorry, you're going to where again?
Vanguard University.
Vanguard, okay.
Yeah.
That's California, right?
Yeah. It's a really small private
Okay.
college in Costa Mesa.
I feel like back in the long time ago, when we were at Calvary the first time, there was a group that came through from Vanguard. I think they were some kind of a
Probably.
music team or something, and they performed at Calvary, and then they had needed host families just to let some of these college kids crash on their couch for the night, and we took in like 6 of them. I remember, yeah, but it wasn't like one of those, because we've done that a lot. We did it with the kids from India, and then we've had a bunch of exchange students. It's cool, you kind of get to know them. But with the Vanguard kids, like we literally picked them up, I think like 9 at night, and they left at like 8 in the morning. So like you didn't really, like we talked to them a little bit, like maybe an hour or two before bed, but it wasn't, it was just kind of like, but they were pretty cool, it was kind of cool. But wow, doctor stuff, that's nuts. I mean, what specifically does that job entail, what you're talking about? Like if you got a job in the field that you just said you want to major in. So
that field, biomedical sciences, is like super vague with a lot of open doors if I can find the right opportunities. So I'm totally willing to be swayed and change my mind if like certain classes don't go well, or I like this more than this. Because I'm having to take like a million labs. So it'll kind of depend on that. But in my mind right now, I'd like to go into pharmacology. Which is like more drug research. So being in a lab, knowing the things a doctor needs to know, but without actually touching people or blood. So we're definitely going to talk about that later. Because you got the terms big pharma is getting thrown around all the time now, and I'm sure you have your own thoughts on that. All right, well, cool. Well, that's really cool. I didn't know that. I had no idea that's what you were. That's kind of a new thing, then, right? That's that when you were as of coming back to school. Okay, that's really awesome.
All right, so we do music first. Music pretty easy. Kind of, relax with the music. It's kind of it's a more maybe right. Yeah, I always joke because on like one of the first episodes I called it heated discussion in jest, but we were talking about Weezer, and this guy that I had on, he was like, "Oh, only Weezer's whatever. They sucked after these 2 albums." I was like, "No, that's the only time I've ever really been like got into any kind of a debate. I mean, for lack of a better word, but again, nothing's ever been heated on here, like heated, like where we're yelling at each other, because that's kind of the point. Even when I have people that totally disagree with me on lots of things. So it's probably going to be fun, because I know, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but the other times I've had people much younger than me on here, the musical, like you're probably going to bring up a lot of musical stuff that I've never heard of. Which is going to be cool. And because what I do is I'll write it down, I'll check it out, and I've actually found some stuff I really like that way. Sometimes I look it up later and go, they like that? That's terrible. What in the world? But that's just because I'm old. So what would you say is like the first time in your whole life that you can remember ever thinking to yourself, I like that, or, that song's awesome, or, I want to buy that, or I guess it's all digital probably now, right? First time in my life was probably listening to the radio. I can picture like being in the back seat of the Suburban. Definitely my little dramatic self, like looking out the window, like singing this song, even though all we listened to was like Christian radio. So I don't know what I was being emo about. But that's probably the earliest memories I have, is we listened to the radio all the time. Do you remember any specific songs that you would sing back then? I'm trying to think of one about like a flower wilting away or something like that. A flower wilting away. But it was definitely like a Christian song. I don't know. Was it like more like contemporary, like worshipy, or was it like very 2000s? Everything sounds the same. That's true. Sort of Christian music. So I'm having a hard time pinning anything down. But yeah, we listened to K-Love and sometimes worship CDs. When I was little. And back when you were little, there was still K-Life was still around. I don't know if you remember that station. The local, it was just in San Luis. That was really cool. Because I know your parents are like, I shouldn't say they do kind of stand apart from a lot of our close friends that are Christians, as far as they also like some of the heavy rock music, which was cool, because we used to go to shows with them all the time. Like we went and saw like Pillar and Project 86 one time in Ventura, and with your parents. So that was kind of cool, because a lot of the other friends that we had, they're like, oh, what's that? It's a little too heavy, a little too heavy for me, or whatever. But my dad especially definitely has his own taste. But when I was little, compared to like the younger kids, I think my parents were a lot more strict about stuff like that. We only listened to Christian music, us kids. And then
as we got older, we were allowed to listen to other things.
Sure.
But
how old were you when that switched? Do you remember? Like how old were you when they kind of opened the door to secular music?
Definitely like iTunes days where everything cost 99 cents. So I want to say I was probably like 9 if Lily was 12. That sounds like about the right age when we started buying other music.
Right. And that would trickle down into, so you're the third born of 6.
Right.
So your youngest is what? He's 12?
Right now he's
11?
11. He'll be 12.
He's 11. Okay.
Yeah.
So like when that switched over for you at the age you were, was it like an age thing, or was it just like the whole family just kind of switched over and then everything was kind of okay at that point? I'm not everything, but you know what I mean. Obviously, not everything's okay.
Yeah,
that's not what I'm trying to say.
There were, I think, for the most part, if Lily was starting to be allowed to listen to something, I would, because she was the oldest, so it kind of trickled down in that way. But then there was also a time where I decided I didn't like something just because it was popular. Okay. And so if my sister was allowed to listen to this thing and download music from this artist, I would be like, well, I don't want to listen to that. Okay. That's not who I am. Nice. And so that kind of impeded that as well.
So you're kind of punk rock attitude at an early age.
For a while, yeah. Unfortunately.
Fight the system kind of stuff, you know?
Right.
Okay.
So then it would be like, well, what do you want to listen to? I don't know. I just don't want to listen to that.
Yeah, just not that, you know?
Just not that. That's not me.
Okay. Do you remember any of that stuff, what that was? Like as far as like the popular stuff that you were like on a mission against?
Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber. Okay.
I was like, everyone loves him.
Yeah.
What's the hype about?
Yeah.
I'm going to dislike him just because he's popular.
Okay. So you weren't a believer back then. Absolutely. Is what you're trying to say. How about now? Still don't like him, or?
Now I like listening to his old music.
Okay.
Because it is reminiscent, even though I didn't want to listen to it, I can still remember it from the olden days. But
that's funny you mentioned that one, because that was probably one of the first, at least to my memory, because we kind of had the same rule. I mean, from early on, because Alora was like 3 when we became Christians. So then it kind of, in the very beginning, it was kind of like a throw out anything that's not Christian, and like I had like 500 CDs or something, and I sold all of them, replaced it with like all Christian CDs, and I did that for probably 5 or 6, 7 years, and I still listen to Christian music, but I mean, I don't like say no if it's not like, oh, it's not Christian, get out of my house.
Right.
We're obviously not at that stage, but I remember one of the very first singers or whatever that was secular that we were allowing certain songs for was Justin Bieber, because I remember Laura was a baby, and what was the one he did with Ludacris was in it? It's one of the early ones. Oh, what was the name of that song? And then there was the movie was called that too. Not Now or Never.
Never Say Never.
Never Say Never. There it was. Yeah. That one. No, that one had Jaden Smith in it. That's right. Jaden Smith was in that one, and then I think Ludacris was maybe in the baby song. But anyway, so that was one of the first ones that we said. Part? Yeah, the rap part. Yeah, because then he goes Luda, and he comes in and he starts to like. It just seems so out of place even then. I'm like, you got this like this rapper guy who's like thug, and he's he's like rapping in a Justin Bieber song.
Like
I was like,
a little
what?
13-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. So, but so we have kind of fond memories of that. I can never say I'm like a Justin Bieber fan. Like, I think he's talented, but I'm not gonna go buy his CD and listen to it or anything like that.
I don't dislike his music. Like if somebody puts it on, I'm not like, oh, turn that off. Yeah. But I don't go out of my way to listen to it either. Okay. But
do you still see yourself as kind of like, out of the 6 kids, do you kind of see yourself as kind of that rebellious one more so, like going your own way as opposed to following the crowd?
I don't consider myself to be rebellious. Okay. I think that out of the siblings, I might be labeled that. Okay. But only like relatively. I'm not a rebellious child in general, but relative to my siblings, I could maybe see some patterns of like them going this way, and I'm like, no, I'll just do my own thing just because it's my own thing.
Because it's your own thing. Yeah. So you still kind of see yourself like that today?
A little bit.
As an adult? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I've kind of always been that way too. But I don't know if it's because and I think most people like that. You probably say it's not necessarily on purpose. It's just kind of I don't know, it's just like it's something inside. You're just like, I don't know if I want to like that.
Yeah.
Because everybody else does, or,
I find comfort in like questioning people for what they really think.
Yeah, me too. That's why I do this.
That with my siblings. I'm like, why are you saying that? Are you just saying that because you heard Dad say that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And which is good questions.
I think it is.
I think they're good questions.
It's very frustrating for other people.
It is, yes, exactly. Right.
So I would say that. I wouldn't consider myself rebellious to my parents and siblings, just very frustrating.
Right.
Yeah.
Love it. That's awesome. Okay, so how about like just moving into like genre-wise? Do you have a specific genre you tend to like more than other kinds of music, or?
Probably just pop.
Just pop, okay.
There was a couple years I was really into, gosh, this is like almost embarrassing. I was really into Glee covers.
Okay.
And like musicals. I remember on my like Spotify Wrapped one year, it was like show tunes. That was my number one genre, and I was like, "Yikes!
Nice.
Don't show anybody that." But I would
like
say,
old school show tunes. Like, or are you talking about like newer musicals, like Greatest Showman and Chicago and that kind of stuff?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I have a very obsessive personality, especially when it comes to music. So I'll like dive really deep into one musical and like listen to that on repeat, or like dive into one artist, which is kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay.
But in the most recent years, it's probably been like pop. That's my most popular genre.
Okay.
I liked country music when I had a radio in my bedroom when I was younger. I listened to like Sunny Country, and then when I started working at Conan Luke's.
Oh, that's all country over there.
It ruined country for me.
Because you had to listen to it all the time?
Yeah. So I don't ever listen to country music on my own time anymore.
Maybe after years and years of not working there, assuming you don't work at another country steakhouse when you're wherever you're going. But, okay.
But radio country is... People will argue that that's not real country anyways.
Yeah, it's like with any music, right? The people that are the purists are like, well, no, this is the only kind that's considered this back in whatever year. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Every kind of music evolves over time. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But
so I fell out of country music, and I listened to a lot of pop. I was never really into rap.
Okay.
Or
death metal. You look like a person who likes death metal.
Definitely not. No death metal. I like things that I can sing along with.
Okay.
So I do remember that from when I was little too. Even with the Christian music, like there were songs that we would sing along with, and that's kind of where I lean to.
Okay. So do you like to sing?
I do.
Like still today?
Yeah.
Do you ever do it in front of people? Or are you more like a shower or a car singer?
Definitely a shower and a car singer.
Okay.
I have sang in front of people a couple times. I've done like worship and stuff, but that's different.
Oh, you have? Okay. Like solos or just like?
I mean, like leading worship, yeah.
Really?
I have.
Okay.
Only a couple times. I've never been like in charge of a band or anything. I've been mostly just like a guest.
Yeah, that's still brave though to sing, because like I could probably go on stage and sing as long as a bunch of people were singing with me. You know what I mean? Like it was a chorus or something.
Maybe,
but like to sing a solo to where people are just listening to just my voice.
Yeah, it's definitely something to get over. And for a long time, I thought like, oh, I want to be a singer.
Oh,
and
okay.
I could not sing in front of people.
Oh.
I would get like super shaky and nervous.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess I don't want to do it that bad.
But there's a lot of people like that are famous singers today that would tell you that same story, and they just had to get past that.
Yeah.
Like, because really what it comes down to when we're afraid to sing in front of people, it's usually because of the reaction we're not knowing what we're going to get. But like if you sang, let's say you got up and you sang in front of 1,000 people, one song, and then all 1,000 of those people jumped to their feet in a standing ovation when you were done, right? You might have a little more confidence, right, to sing more on stage.
Yes and no. I think the other part of my obsessiveness, I was obsessed with American Idol, which is a singing show.
Yeah.
And people go on there all the time thinking that they're so talented. And they were like, I felt like they were embarrassing their families by going on that show. And I was like, what if everyone's lying to me? What if I actually suck at singing? So I'm just not going to take that chance. Okay. And I'm never going to sing in front of people. Because what if I think I'm great and I'm actually tone deaf?
Right.
So I just played it safe there.
Well,
and I think that's
smart.
why I was nervous.
Yeah. Well, it's actually smart in a sense, because there is that element of like if your family and friends most likely they're going to tell you you're good, even if you're not, because they just want you to feel good about yourself or whatever, which I personally am like, don't do that. No. Because then you're giving somebody a false, like, assurance, you know what I mean? Well,
even the other side of you, my siblings, they would encourage me to do something embarrassing any day.
Oh.
So I was like, what if you're just saying that? Like, are you lying? You just want me to, like, go embarrass myself and sing in front of people.
Yeah. They're like, no, you sound great. Get up there. You sound fantastic. You're wonderful.
Literally. Yeah. So I was so, like, hyper aware of that I never took the chance when I was younger.
How about now? You ever think you might still? What if you're like living far away like you were, but I mean like even when you were in Tennessee, you could have gone to like an open mic night or something. Nobody knows you there. They're probably never going to see you again. Would that be harder for you to do or easier than like in front of people you know, like family and friends?
I think maybe if I like knew how to play guitar, something like that would be easier, but I can only sing.
Okay.
Like I've played a little bit of piano and a little bit of ukulele or something.
Oh, there you go.
So I know music and I know what sounds good, but I'm not an instrument player. Okay. So I think
you don't really you don't have like a desire for that?
I don't have a desire for it, and I don't have hundreds of dollars to go get a guitar.
Well, there's that.
And I don't have a lot of free time anymore. Okay. And I also really was considering that I've been moving with my car. Mm-hmm. And so when I did live in Tennessee and thought about maybe I'll get a guitar, I was like, I don't have room for this in my car when I leave again. So I haven't like settled down enough to have a hobby like guitar. Okay. But as far as like singing in front of people, I have decided that doing worship is like fills my soul enough.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That I don't need to have like a singing career.
Okay. Doing that in front of people, or just talking about from the congregation side?
And the only times I've done it is like in youth groups. Mm-hmm. And I did worship for the like after summer camp that my siblings went to. Okay. I was just like a guest because I don't attend that church anymore. Mm-hmm. But I was able to do worship with them. Okay. And even at Hume, there were a couple opportunities, just little like beside the campfire singing with kids. Right. Is like super fulfilling to me. Okay. And how was working, just as a side thing, how was working out there? Did you enjoy that or no? Yeah, okay. I did. Okay. I hate snow. Yeah. Can never do that again. I saw a picture on Facebook. I think might have been Sophia, but I think you were involved. Like you guys were shoveling like a staircase that was like all covered in snow or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. It was so bad. Okay. And so the snow was awful, but I would say as a whole, like my Hume experience was really good. I enjoyed it. There was drama and there was like really hard things, but I think I would have had that anywhere. Yeah. So that's life. I was willing to do it in like a beautiful place with a secure job with people who care about me and want to serve the Lord. So and were you working mostly with like kids out there or? Yeah. Okay. My job, when I first started, it was like after Tennessee, I was just kind of running away and not knowing what to do. I was like, I don't have anything. I don't want to live with my parents. I just want to be out of here. That's all I know. School and I hate it in Tennessee. Right. I tried to do that's an even longer story. I tried to work for YouthWorks, which is a missions organization. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of that one. I had to resign because there was some sketchy stuff going on, and I felt really blindsided by leadership. Oh, bummer. So I had to, and that was going to be my whole summer of 2022. Okay. And so that's recent. That's pretty recent then. Yeah, like last summer. Sure. Okay. So I had to quit, and I was in West Virginia at the time, and they were like, okay, where are you going to go? And I was like, I guess I'll go to California. Like, I don't know. And so I talked to Sophia, who's my best friend. Yeah. And she was like, just come work with me. Like, we always need people in our department. You can live at my house because she's full-time, so she has her own place. It was tiny. But I moved in with her, just kind of spur of the moment. And that job was support services. Okay. Which I was not cut out for. But it's okay. It was only like now you know a month and a half. Right. I gave it a shot, I was helpful to the team. But it was rough. And I decided I wanted to stay because I wasn't ready to go back to school. Like, I didn't have anything lined up, and I didn't have anywhere else to live. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll stay. And I interviewed to be on the activities team.
Okay.
And a couple other things. But they hired me. I loved my bosses. And so I was the person clipping kids into the ropes course and
fun.
zip line and
the fun stuff.
Yeah, I was all the fun activities.
Nice.
And that started in the off season, so there were kids during the week and then adult retreats during the weekend. It was super busy, super fun, small team. That's how I met my boyfriend.
Okay.
And moved out of the full-time housing into part-time housing. Okay. So I had a new roommate, and we became really good friends. Okay. And then winter was rough. Yeah, I bet. I was in charge of the skate rink and broom hockey, so thankfully I had a roof over my head. Yeah. Other people weren't so lucky. Oh. Like, I didn't have to work the tube run, at least. Yeah. Just stand in the rain and the snow.
Oh, my gosh, that's terrible.
It was like a record-breaking winter.
Yeah.
So that was really rough, and we all kind of just got through it. None of us were thriving. It wasn't just a me thing. Right. Everyone was having a hard time.
I bet. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there was still snow on the ground a week before summer camp started. Okay. And so summer, I switched over from activities to lifeguarding. And that was super fun. I loved my summer, and that's what I'm trying to go back and do again this year.
Very cool. Yeah. Awesome. So you said you met your boyfriend. Do you still have this boyfriend?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't want to mention him later and be like, we broke up. What are you bringing him up for? All right. So let's go back to the pop music and kind of give me an idea of some. No, don't ever apologize for that, because that's one of the beauties of this that I love about this podcast. Maybe others might not. I love that about this, is that there's no structure. Okay. If we're talking about music and we want to go over here and start talking about giraffes or something, hey, let's do it. Love it. Because we'll always come back. That's why I have this cheat sheet here to always bring me back. Perfect. So to go back into the pop music, can you give me some of your favorites in that genre? Like, who would you say is like some of your favorite?
My top artist probably of all time is Taylor Swift. Okay. And like I said, I haven't listened to your podcast, but my mom told me that your daughter went on and on about Taylor Swift. And I was like, what am I going to talk about? Yeah, she hasn't talked about all these things.
No, I've had quite a few people on here that we talk a lot about Taylor Swift.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
I really like Taylor Swift.
Okay.
I'm also a big fan of Conan Gray, even though I hate his most recent songs.
What is it? So he's new for me. Okay, I haven't heard that one.
Or I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's one more that's new. Oh, Winner.
I haven't heard that one either.
Don't like it.
Okay.
Not good.
He's brand new for me because Addie got a bunch of recommendations from her friends, and then she'll give me the list of artists, and my job is to go through and read lyrics and find out which songs are okay, which are not, that whole deal. So on one of the lists that she had given me was Conan Gray. I was like, I've never heard of this guy, and I listened to some. I was like, this is really good, and then she ended up covering astronomy. Addie did a cover of Astronomy, which I thought was really good.
That song.
Yeah, that's a good one. So, but there's probably like 7 or 8 songs that I have by him, but I haven't heard the 2 that you mentioned. So
it's okay. You're not missing anything.
No, yeah, well,
and they sound different than the rest of his music. Okay. It sounds like he tried to go a little more 80s, a little more grunge almost.
Oh, really?
Know.
Okay.
It was not a good vibe because I feel like Conan has really good sad. Emotional, girly vibe songs, and I like that better. Okay. But I started listening to Conan when he came out with his first album. Well, it wasn't even really an album. It's like 6 songs.
Yeah, it's like an EP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when that came out, I had been like one of his YouTube watchers. What is it called? Like a subscriber on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he just would make little videos. And he was started releasing music, which was really cool.
Yeah. Isn't that fun when you get to be there from the beginning like that, and you can say I remember when he would actually have time to really do
I definitely
stuff with the
hold
fans.
it against people when they say oh, Heather's my favorite song. I'm like, wow, so you're fake. I definitely am a gatekeeper in that way.
Right.
You don't know the real Conan.
Right. Exactly. Well, how did you get turned on to him then? If it was before he was really had any kind of name for himself, did a friend tell you about him, or?
Not that I remember. I think I just found him on YouTube. I used to just like watch videos and then click the recommended. I don't really watch YouTube anymore, and YouTube's changed it a lot.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I found him through that, and then started listening on Spotify.
Okay.
And he didn't have very many listeners, which is really cool.
Right.
And then I got to go to a concert when I was living in Tennessee.
Okay.
I went by myself.
Was he opening, or was he the actual headliner?
No, he was the headliner. It was after. Okay. It was after Kid Crow, right before Super Ache.
Okay.
Which is his most recent.
Yep.
So he did a concert.
Yeah.
And I went by myself.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
It was so good.
Did you have really good seats? Were you like right up front?
Not right up front. I was probably like 4 rows back, but it was a super tiny like auditorium. Okay. So everyone was close. Which
again is nice, right? When you can see somebody in that kind of a venue before they really get big. Yeah. Like I had somebody on a while back that was talking about how I don't remember who the headliner was now. They went to see somebody and Taylor Swift was the opener. Wow. And like nobody knew who she was.
That's crazy.
She had like 4 songs, like her first album wasn't even out yet. And this person was talking about how she's like, but I just remember thinking like, there's this young kid with this long stringy blonde hair and this just her and her guitar, and she like had some guy on a cajon or something that was doing the percussion, and but this person's like, but I could tell like this girl's got it, like she's gonna go somewhere someday. Just like, but how cool to be able to say that. Like, so I mean, even for you, like, and I know Conan Gray hasn't gotten like, because still to this day, like I talk to people, a lot of people, they don't have any idea who that is. Yeah. But like eventually, who knows? Maybe he'll be, of course, not on Taylor Swift's level. Who can ever be there?
I don't think so.
I think other than maybe Michael Jackson or something, it was probably the last one I can remember that had that kind of status before her. But. Yeah, so I do have. So did you say the Super Ache is the newest album?
I think so. Okay. Unless I'm getting them out of order.
Okay, because I do have a song from that. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head.
I think that's the newest one. That's newer than Kid Crow for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is probably my favorite.
Okay.
Would be Kid Crow.
And is that a full length or is that just the EP?
It's a full album.
That's a full album. Okay. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to go to a concert by yourself is pretty hardcore. Right.
That's what I thought. Yeah. I was proud of myself for going anyways. I tried to get 2 tickets and I was like, oh, I guess I'll just make a friend by the time it happens, or like bring Sophia's younger sister. Right. But it was like super expensive to get 2 tickets and I didn't have any friends, and I was like, this is a really small auditorium. Yeah. Knowing Conan's fan base, I would feel safe going to a concert. Yeah. So I got 1 ticket and it was like $40. Wow. It was the steal of a lifetime. So I was like, I don't care that I have to drive 3 hours. Like,
was it that far?
Hours. Well, because I was living in like a small town called Athens, and it was like 3 hours from Nashville, which is where the concert was. So,
were you east of Nashville or west of Nashville?
East.
So you were closer to Knoxville area.
Yeah, I was living right between Knoxville and Chattanooga. Okay. Like right in between. Okay. So I would just drive down and up to Nashville.
Right. It's like a drive from here to LA. Not that big a deal. Yeah.
No, it's really not.
Because I mean, we'll do that from here. We'll go down to a concert or something in LA. But yeah. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. So I know that we've talked about Taylor Swift a lot in here, but we're still going to talk about her. Okay. So I guess the first question I would have for you about Taylor, so obviously I am a fan. I don't consider myself really a Swiftie. Like I'm not, and this is something that Alora and I talked to, which is a really good conversation. You should listen to it sometime. But one of the things that I was bringing up was, as much as I admire her music and as much as I admire her talent, I always have a lot of respect for people that write their own songs. That's a big deal to me. Yeah. Because I feel like people that have a voice, you're just kind of born with it. You just can sing. It's natural, But like actually writing catchy songs and songs that people want to listen to me, that's like a whole new level.
A lot more effort.
Oh man, I have a lot of respect for that. So I have always respected Taylor Swift for that reason. But there's also kind of like this, almost like this deifying of her, where they like, people see her as like this, like God, like my Taylor could never do any wrong, and no matter what, she's always walks on water, and she's like this amazing, like, and that's where I'm kind of like, no, I'm sorry, there's really no artist that I would consider in that way. So that's something Laura and I talked about a lot. But
okay.
But the first question I would ask you is, what's your favorite? Do you have like a favorite album of hers, like a style? Do you prefer her earlier country kind of stuff or the more poppy stuff later? Well, obviously you said you like pop music the best, so.
Yeah. I remember when she stopped doing country, I was a little disappointed at that time. I was like, oh, she's changing her genre just to fit in with the pop world, and I wasn't a huge fan when like 1989 came out.
Okay. Yeah.
And then even Reputation, I just wasn't listening to her as much.
Yeah. That you just mentioned my favorite album and my least favorite album of hers right back to back.
Okay.
1989 is my favorite and Reputation is my least favorite.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because my opinion has changed, and I would say as of this year, she's probably my top artist again. Okay. But I listened to her old music. We would burn CDs, which I think is illegal.
It is. You know this is being recorded.
Yeah. You know what? I was a minor. It's not my fault, and I don't still own it.
Yeah.
But I remember I had a burnt disc, Fearless. Okay. And just like my mom had printed out like the picture and just taped it to the little CD.
That's awesome. What a good mom.
So that was like my favorite album, just because I knew all the songs. I could sing along, which is always a selling point for me.
Yes.
And my older sister liked Red, and so I was like, not my thing.
Which is like the trendy one to like, right? Almost anybody who asks what their favorite album is, everybody says Red. Yeah. That's why I'm like you. I don't want to say that. Yeah. You know? It's a great album. Yeah. But, you know, it's like everybody likes that one.
Yeah. But when Midnights came out, I think that's when I like jumped back in and started listening to only Taylor Swift, which is kind of where I'm at right now. I really like Midnights. Not on the first listen. Okay. I thought it was awful.
I still haven't heard it.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't heard. No, that's not true. I've heard a few songs that Alora showed me.
Okay.
But as a whole album, I have not listened to Evermore.
Okay.
Or Midnights. Crazy, right? I think that's the order, right? Folklore, then Evermore. Because I've heard Folklore.
Yes.
And then I think, what's before Folklore? Lover?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've heard everything up to that point, and then I've heard just select songs from Evermore and Midnights.
Yeah. But those are really good. I wasn't super into them when they came out, but then when Midnights came out, I feel like social media and all of her fans were kind of like erupting. Mm-hmm. And so I listened to Midnights. Okay. And I was like, this isn't that good. I don't really like it. Like, all the songs sounded incomplete to me. Okay. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it another try. And I listened to it on repeat for like a week. And then I was like, maybe I do like this. Yeah. Like, I didn't love it, but I couldn't stop listening to it. Yeah. And now it's been long enough. And I'll just put on, like, Taylor Swift on shuffle on all of her songs and let it run. So.
Which is probably pretty cool because it's such a different variety of stuff, you know, because you got the country and then you got the pop stuff and then you got like Folklore is like very folksy, I guess, is the, you know, for lack of a better term, which is really, really cool. But yeah, I kind of made a rule years ago that when I'm listening to an album, like I don't feel like I can judge it after one listen.
Right.
Because there's been way too many times where I've heard something at first like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And then it's the weirdest thing. Like 3 or 4 listens later, like if I just happen to hear it, I'm like, this is the greatest album ever made.
I know.
Like, how do I go from this sucks to this is the greatest album ever? So it's like so now I'm like, okay, I have to listen to it 5 times. If I listen to it 5 times and still think it sucks, nope, never listen to it again.
Like every song in a row as they came out?
That's the way I do it. Yeah, I like to enjoy an entire product, which is something that's kind of lost today with the days of Spotify and what's the other one? What's the one? It's like a jukebox kind of.
Oh, I don't know.
Pandora.
Okay.
Pandora, where they'll just kind of do like different songs here and there, like playing singles here and there. But I think there's something really cool about like just taking a full album with the cover and the lyrics and the inside pictures and the song orders put in that order on purpose, you know, for a reason. I mean, it's not always like a concept album where they're telling a story necessarily, but there's a reason why they chose that to be the first track. It's usually because they're like, okay, we want the album to pop off or whatever, and then we'll do, you know. So that's the way that I like to do it usually. Not always, because obviously I want to listen to a few songs first to decide if I even want to give this artist a chance.
It's worth an hour and a half.
Right, exactly. It's like, well, you know, do I have time for this, or do I even want to entertain this, or, you know, sometimes I'll just listen. I'll be like, this is just not my style. You know, most of the I am a fan of hip hop, but most of like the East Coast kind of style, or even in the Christian rap world right now, some of the newer is it's just terrible. I mean, it's just terrible. It's
I haven't even given it a chance.
It's horrible.
Christian rap, I don't think.
Like I'll have like Radio U on or something in the car, and in some of these songs, it's just. And I like the kind of rap where it's like the chorus has like a chorus, like you got like usually a female singer or something. Okay. It's as opposed to just the rat da 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 da, and then da 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 da. You just keep going, and then before you know it, the song's over. You're like, what in the world did I just listen to? That was terrible, you know. And a lot of times the words are stupid, and it just doesn't make any. Anyway, that's a tangent. So you still don't tell me what your favorite Taylor Swift album is. Is it hard to pick? Is that why?
It definitely is, and it kind of changes depending on like the mood I'm in. Gosh, I think Fearless will always have like a special place in my heart.
Okay, nice.
And because I had it on a CD and I would listen to it in order on purpose, like I can just tell when the song ends. Like I know the next note of the next song, and I'm just like ready for it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
and it's going to be like that forever.
Yeah.
You're going to be 55 years old, you're going to pop that album on, and you're still going to start singing the one that comes next.
Yep.
You know, because I know that because I have that with albums that I have, so that's awesome.
Yeah, okay. I'm not mad about that.
Yeah.
I really like Midnights, but I don't think it tops Fearless.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is Fearless the second or the third?
The second.
Okay, and then Speak Now is the third. I always get Fearless and Speak Now confused as far as which one came out. Yeah. Is Fearless the one with You Belong With Me? Is that that's on there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that what it's called? You Belong With Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. She wears short skirt. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to sing the whole song for you. All right, so we got a few. We got Taylor Swift. We got Conan Gray. Is there any other in that genre that you would cite as something that you really like?
I mean, I have to shout out the Glee cast because they took over so much of my listening for like a long time.
And they're playing like the covers of old music.
Covers of all different genres.
Okay.
Yeah. Just making everything sound a little more show tunes.
Right. But what I appreciate, I never really watched Glee, but what I appreciated about the show is that it turned a whole young audience onto all these songs that have been around since like the 70s. Like they did a Journey one, and next thing I know, all these young kids are talking, they're going around singing Don't Stop Believin' and all this stuff. It's like, dude, that song's like 50 years old, really? Are you know? But didn't they do Michael Jackson? They had one that was Michael Jackson.
They did like Beatles Week.
Beatles, Did they do Queen, or am I just...
probably.
Can't remember if they did Queen. They did. Okay. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So.
And I really liked the Glee cast versions of things, and I'm that person who a song will come on and will be like, but have you heard the Glee one? They did the song on Glee. And like, I watched the show backwards and forwards, and so I was a huge fan there. Okay. Yeah, I could never really... I think Bethany watched it a bit, but I could never get into it. I know Laura watched through it quite a bit. There was a certain point she got where... I don't remember what she said. Maybe it was one of the main actors passed away, right? Yeah, maybe it was after that. She said she couldn't get into the show after that. I don't remember what she said, but yeah, it definitely got it like stayed on the air too long. Okay, like, they tried to keep it going without their main characters, and Corey Monteith is the one who passed away. Right. He was one of those, but then also other main characters were moving on with their life, and they weren't in high school, like in the show canon. Yeah, so they tried to keep it going, and it was not as good, but I do think the music stayed really good. Okay. Like the covers are still they still hold amazing up to me. Okay. Yeah, that's what's hard about when you're working with kids, like, and you're trying to keep a series going. It's like they're gonna get too old. You have to let them move on. Yeah, like you watch Stranger Things, right? Yeah. So it was a trip when like they finally came out with season 4. Like it's been this long hiatus, and it's supposed to be taking place, and these kids, like Lucas is all ripped. Yeah. And he's like, hey, I was like, what in the world is happening? Like, really? These are like adults now, you know? Right. And it's just, and I don't know what they're going to do with season 5. I mean, I'm sure they have to keep rewriting over and over again. I think they have to CGI some of it. Oh, is what I heard. Is they're going to try and make them look younger. Okay. Which works, weirdly. Like, we just watched the newest Indiana Jones movie. Okay. Have you seen it? I've seen bits and pieces. Okay. I think it was on, and I walked into a room, but I haven't seen the whole thing. Well, in like the first 20 minutes or so of the movie, it takes place back
around the time of the old movies. So they literally made Harrison Ford look like he did in the movies from the 80s.
Okay.
It was weird, but it was
I believe
good.
it.
Like, it looked good.
I think technology's good enough to do that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I can't believe it. But
just end the show and start a new one with like kids who are actually coming up.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what I heard anyway, that's what they were going to do with the one they had with Shia LaBeouf. Whatever, not the newest Indiana Jones, but the one before that, the Crystal Skull one, where he was playing his son. That supposedly that he was going to be the new Indiana Jones, like, and they were going to start a whole new series of movies with him. But then he fell off the deep end and started wearing bags on his head and all kind of crazy stuff like that. So I don't know if you remember all that. Do you remember all that?
I know that Shia LaBeouf went crazy, but
Well, he wore like there was a thing. I don't remember if it was like at a.
Was it just for paparazzi reasons?
No, it was like I want to say it was like at some kind of a awards or something. Oh. But he had a bag on his head, and it said "I'm not famous" or something on it. Right? Like, it was kind of like when Joaquin Phoenix kind of went off the deep end for a while too, and everybody's like, "Is that guy lost his mind or what's happening?" You know, but you know. Who knows? I don't know these people. I don't know what's going on in their personal lives. Who knows? I'm sure being in Hollywood is not easy, you know, as far as your mental status. All right. So how about most influential band or artist? Like somebody that's, and this could be even one you've already mentioned if you want, but just something that's impacted your life beyond just music. Like, you know what I mean? Like, changed you in some way.
I would go with the soundtrack to the musical Waitress.
Waitress. Is that the one with, is that Carrie? No, that's not Carrie Russell.
Sarah, I don't know how to say her last name.
Sarah Bareilles?
Bareilles.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to say it either.
I think you were right. I think it's like Bareilles.
Yeah,
she wrote it and is like the main character.
Okay. And it's a movie or a stage production?
It's a stage production. Okay. They did film it, and they played it at the theater. I just saw it. They played it for like a weekend.
Oh, nice.
But it was filmed from the stage.
Oh, it's like
it's a musical.
Gotcha. So they just basically set up a camera crew and recorded a live stage production of it.
And then they showed that in the movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
To make some more money.
I'll give you my money. I love that musical.
Now, is it because you can relate? Like, is it about a waitress? I mean, is that do you kind of feel like on the same page there, or what?
No, I don't relate to her in that way. It's about a waitress who like is in an abusive relationship and gets pregnant, and then gets together with her doctor, who's also married. Okay, it's terrible.
So I'm guessing you don't relate to any of that. I'm hoping
I don't relate to those.
Okay, good.
I am a waitress.
Yes. That's as far as it goes.
But that's pretty much as far as it goes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't know. I listened to it, and like I said, I'm kind of obsessive with music, and so I got really into it when I was like going through a heartbreak.
Oh, okay.
And that was like all I listened to, and it was always playing in the back of my mind. And I don't know. It just like got me through that season. It was something like happy and something that I could sing along with even when I was sad. And I would just sit in my car. I remember I would go to work and then I would come home and not go inside. I would just sit in my car and like listen to the rest of it. Yeah. And so I would say that was pretty influential.
Okay. And you think it's more because of the thing you happened to be going through at that time?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like you could have heard that soundtrack like 4 years later, and it probably wouldn't have had the same impact on you.
And when I do listen to it now, I'm like, oh my gosh, it like all comes back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So do you have a hard time do you not listen to it for that reason, or?
I don't listen to it regularly anymore. Okay. And I can't listen to like one song. I have to like sit down and listen to the whole thing. Yeah. But I like it. It's like a memory capsule for me, like something hard that I worked through.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And someday you can maybe listen to it again with your new boyfriend or your husband or whatever, and be like, oh, look, this used to make me so sad because of the time I went through. It'll seem like such a distant memory that who cares, you know? Okay. Very, very cool. All right. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing good on time. Actually, you want any more?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So the last thing we're going to do as far as music, and again, you can always list ones that you've already listed as this, because I assume these are probably going to fall in there too, but just like your top five favorite musical artists, bands, singers.
Top 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they don't have to go in order, or just let's say just 5
Sure.
that you really like. I know, because people are like, oh, top 5, it's so hard.
Yeah. Definitely Taylor and Conan would be at the top of the list, obviously. I did go through a Weezer phase. I really like Weezer.
All right. Nice.
I really like Pacific Daydream. That's probably my favorite.
That's your favorite Weezer song?
That album, yeah. Let's see. Who else?
Is that an album? Is that a Weezer album? I've never heard of that one.
I'm pretty sure it is. I'm like tempted to look through my phone and just see
go
who's
for it.
at the top of the list.
This is I always tell people this is an open note quiz here. So.
My top artist on my Spotify Wrapped was Lizzy McAlpine.
Lizzy McAlpine. Never heard of it.
Very like soft, sad, and I listened to her albums at Hume, which is like the memory I have with Hume Winter is like her songs. Okay. So she would probably be up there.
Is she kind of a local, like a not real well known? Because I've never heard of her.
No, I would say that I found her through TikTok.
Okay.
Like just little sound blips that went viral, and I really like Ashe.
Ash.
Ashe with an E. Like A-S-H-E.
A-S-H-E. I was like with an E, like Esh? No, the E's on the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's 2 I have not heard
So I would
of.
probably feel confident with those as my top 5.
Okay.
I also really love Party Rock Anthem.
Oh, by Ellen.
But not them as like
right
as a band.
Well, they're kind of a one-hit wonder anyway, right? That's really the only song anybody knows them by.
Probably the greatest song of all time.
Wow, the greatest of all time.
It's my favorite.
Wow.
And people that know me know that if I'm ever in a bad mood, if you just put that on. Party Rock Anthem.
Okay. Well, that's good to have that in your arsenal. Because you never know. You're in a bad mood, just pop that on and all your problems go away.
It's always the right song to listen to.
Okay. All right. So that's a cool point though to bring up, because I'm like that too. Like some of my favorite songs of all time wouldn't fall into my top even 50 favorite artists of all time.
Absolutely not.
Because they're just a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
But that one song is great, like, oh, I love that song, but I would never sit down and really listen to a whole album because the rest of it's not very good, No. Okay, so now what we're going to do, and this is everybody's favorite part because I'm putting you on the spot.
Okay.
To give me, if you can, 2 or 3 favorite songs from each of these people. Yeah, so we'll start with Taylor Swift.
Okay, I don't need to look for that.
Okay.
Gosh. See, I tell you my favorite album is Fearless, and that I really love Midnights. But my favorite song is probably Ready for It.
Okay.
At least right now.
Okay.
I love that song.
What album's that on? That's on...
Reputation.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's like the first song on the album.
Okay.
And it's just like always puts you in a good mood.
Right.
Makes you feel like a little bit angsty, but a little like I can do anything. And I think that's just the mood I've been in lately is that song. And gosh, I should probably pick something.
She's a hard one because there's so many.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Because that song, Ready for It, I would categorize with like The Man. I really like that song too.
Yeah.
But as far as like emotional songs, I love Tolerate It. I would probably put that up at the top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it depends if I want to be sad or if I want to be in a good mood.
Right.
What song I pick.
And The Man, that's the one where she talks about if I was a man,
yeah,
like how would you treat me kind of thing. Yeah. We'll probably get more into that concept later.
Okay. I had a feeling you're like holding back some questions.
Yeah, that's not my favorite Taylor Swift song, but all right, how about Conan Gray?
Let's see. I really like Little League.
Okay.
And Overdrive. Overdrive is a single. It's not on one of the albums.
Okay.
But it's really good. And then Super Ache, I kind of... In my mind, it's all like one piece. So I'm having a hard time like picking out probably The Exit.
Okay. Is that the last song?
Yeah.
Okay. As it better be.
Yeah.
That's the title. It better be the last song.
But I have to like listen to the whole thing and then get to that song and I'm like, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's bands that do. I don't know if you ever heard of the band Stained. You know that band? Probably not. It's like from the 90s, but they had an album where the last song on the album was called Intro. And I'm like,
okay,
what are you doing? Like, what? Like, and I kept thinking, like, what did you do? Like, write all the songs, like, and then decide, hey, let's put them all in backwards order in the track list. You know, so like you started the album with the last song. It was supposed to be, I don't know what they did, but I was like, that's dumb. Okay, and Weezer. You mentioned the
California Kids.
Okay.
That's probably my favorite song.
All time.
Like the one that comes to mind from Weezer. Yeah.
I think it's really cool that you even like Weezer because that they came out when I was like a sophomore in high school was when the Blue album came out. And I remember listening to it in my friend's car in like sophomore year and thinking like, I've never heard anything like this before. This is really cool, you know? And then.
Yeah. I don't even remember like how I got into Weezer.
Maybe your parents because they love you.
No, not even.
Okay.
Because they don't really listen to Weezer anymore.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. But yeah, it was after my show tune space. I was like, how did this happen?
You got right into Weezer after that.
Right into Weezer.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't think Glee ever did Weezer, did they?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think they could pull that off.
Well, depends on who.
You're like, maybe.
The Glee cast is a huge cast.
Yeah.
Somebody would be able to pull
That's
it off.
true. That's true. We just watched, I forgot the name of it now. Was it Jennifer Garner? Was it Jennifer Garner? I think it was Jennifer Garner. We just watched a new Christmas movie that just came out, and I forgot what it was called now.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's the family.
Yes.
The Family Switch.
The Family Switch. Yeah. Did you see it?
I didn't see it, but I saw ads for it, so I feel like I saw the whole thing.
So Weezer's in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the dad, who's played by the guy from The Office, Ed Helms. Did you ever watch The Office? Mm-hmm. See the guy who played Andy. So he's in there, and he's the dad, and he's like he used to be in a band, and he's trying to make it big, but like he's kind of put his whole thing on hold because he's with his family or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, his band is Weezer.
Oh.
I mean, like Ed Helms is the singer, but like you see all the members of Weezer are playing all the other instruments in his band. Like we were watching it, and I go, that looks just like Rivers Cuomo from Weezer. And Bethany goes, really? I said, yes. And I looked it up. That is him. I was like, what the heck? But it wasn't like he was singing or anything to where I could really be like,
I would be able to recognize them because I've only ever listened.
Okay, yeah.
So
he's pretty unmistakable. I mean, he's pretty. I mean, if you've seen him before, anyway. But anyway, so I cut you off. So you got one song in there. You have some other ones, or can you not think of them off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember what they're called. I like Hash Pipe.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's really good.
That's a good one. That's yeah. See, that's what I love about Weezer. Is just their riffs are so awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, I love that one too.
Music.
Yeah.
Like you'll always know it's Weezer when it comes on.
Yeah. Yes. And that's something I've talked about on her before too. That's what I appreciate. Like there's certain even guitar players and styles that you can just tell.
Yeah.
Like singers are kind of easier because it's like, oh, that's what that guy sounds like. But if you hear somebody playing guitar and you know who's playing the guitar, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And there's probably only 5 or 6 people like that I can think of that would do that. All right, how about Lizzy McAlpine? Am I saying that right? McAlpine? McAlpine?
Yeah, it's McAlpine.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
I really love her album. It's called Give Me a Minute, and that's also what one of the songs is called.
Okay.
So I'd go with that.
All right.
And Over the Ocean.
Okay.
There's 2 versions of it though, because on the album she does Over the Ocean, and then it like bleeds into a snippet of another song.
Okay.
And then there's also a release where it was called Over the Ocean Call, and it bleeds into a song called Andrew.
Okay.
And so that's the one I listen to.
So do you have to listen to them
You can also hear
together?
Over the Ocean Call just by itself.
Okay.
But on the album, it's like in parentheses, and it's like at the end.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds like you're starting to listen to a different song, but they're under one track.
So it's like an overall kind of theme throughout the whole thing?
Yes. Yeah. Kind of. It's definitely 2 different songs. Like it sounds like you're on to the next song, but it's still on the same track.
Nice.
So
that's really
that
cool.
One goes together.
Yeah. You already got me intrigued with this one. I'm going to definitely check her out because first of all, I've never heard of her, so I was like, check that stuff out. But what you're saying is, I like it. So, all right, and finally, Ashe. Is that a band or is that a singer?
It's a singer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Male, female?
Female.
Okay.
Yeah. My favorite song by her is called Another Man's Jeans.
Okay.
It's really good.
Jeans like Genes or Jeans?
Jeans.
Like the jeans you wear on your legs.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And let me think of. She also has some like sweet songs with Steven Sanchez. Do you know that name?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
He got really popular on TikTok, I think. I'm trying to remember what the song is. He has a song that says, "I'll never fall in love again until I found her."
Oh, I've heard that one.
That one. That's Steven Sanchez.
How have I heard that?
Songs together. I don't know.
Is that in a movie?
Probably. At this point, yeah.
Or maybe on a store in like a... Maybe I heard it in the store.
Yeah, it definitely blew up, and I think through like Instagram and TikTok. That's how like I found his music. But they do some songs together that are really nice, and I'm trying to think of one more by Ashe that's just by herself. There's one that's called "Love Is Letting Go," and it has like the most heart-wrenching, beautiful lyrics. It's a duet with someone else. I want to get the name right. It's with Diane Keaton.
The actress?
She's like older. It sounds like an old woman is also singing in the song.
Well, I don't know if that's the same one, but there's an actress that's old.
Probably. That's the only Diane Keaton that I know.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah.
So that is... Another Man's Jeans is like a totally different vibe than Love Is Letting Go. But there's a... I listened to that again, like in the context of my relationship was turning into long distance. And the lyric is, "The moon won't ever tell the sun that it can't shine." Like, love is letting go.
That's deep.
And it was so sad.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Is that the relationship you're in now, was going long distance?
Yeah.
But you guys are still together.
We are still together.
There you go.
It's still really hard.
Yeah.
But...
Where does he live?
He started going to the school that I'm going to, so we won't be long distance anymore.
Okay.
In a couple weeks. But we met at Hume, and then I stayed, and he left. He went back. He lives in, like, near Sacramento.
Oh, okay. So he's from California, too. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But
Awesome.
yeah, that's probably my favorite.
Cool. So I guess I'll just ask, would you consider yourself to be a political person? Like, is that something that you follow? Do you feel like you're caught up on stuff, or do you just kind of bury your head in the sand kind of person, or?
Well, when you put it that way, it sounds like such a terrible thing. No, I wouldn't consider myself political.
Okay.
I do not watch the news.
Okay.
I am very careful with my social media's algorithms to, like, say I'm not interested in that, or like I don't want to see that. Like, social media for me is just like me and my friends.
Okay.
And
You're
that's
smart.
what I use it for, not for like.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could argue that, like, oh, you could learn something. I don't want to learn through Instagram. I just don't feel like it.
Yeah, you could learn stuff, but how do you know what it is? Like, or if it's even true?
Yeah.
Through a means like that, you know?
So I don't have political things on my phone.
Okay.
And in that way, I'm definitely like, I don't know a whole lot. There's a lot of things I don't know, and I recognize that. Okay.
But would you say, so like, do you, like, you know, like there's left and right, and there's kind of conservative, liberal kind of views. Yeah. Do you feel like you fall one way or the other, or you kind of, depends on the topic?
It kind of depends on the topic, and I don't like associating with either side.
Okay.
Because I don't know, I feel like you have to pick one or nothing, and so I've gone with nothing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't pick a side either.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to like world issues and things, I tend to seem to line up more with right-leaning views.
Okay.
But I still wouldn't call myself like a Republican.
Right.
Because I'm not. I mean, because to me that means like that's the kind of person who's going to be like, oh, I'm just going to vote for the Republican, doesn't matter who it is.
Right.
Which I think is stupid. I'm like, no, I'm going to vote for the person I think is going to best run the country, whether that's Republican, Democrat, you know, whatever Liberal Party or whatever, Green Party, whatever, you know. So, but yeah. So I mean, so then, as far as like just like when you look at our world, then like what do you think? What are some things that you think are wrong with our world? How's that for you? That's a pretty broad way to ask it, right? Yeah, and I know whatever I say would turn into a big discussion. So I hope so. That's what we're here for. We're here to have a big discussion. I know, but like, what do I even mention first? I don't know. What is wrong with our world? Yeah. Gosh. There's a lot of things. I'm trying to figure out which one I'm like more passionate about. Yeah, that's what I want. I want something that you're passionate about. And we can go through all of them too. I mean, we got about an hour or so in this topic, so in this section. So we'll see where we go. It's such a broad issue. Yeah. What, like asking it that way? You mean what's wrong with the world? Like such a generic. I guess what I mean is like what, like let's say you were tomorrow morning. You woke up and you found out you were given the authority. You were given the means, all the money you needed. You were given everything you needed, and they said, "Okay, we want you to start cleaning up our world. We want you to start fixing our this is our country. We want you to start fixing our country." Where do you start? There's obviously quite a few things you would do, but like what would you start with? Like what would you think? Drug addiction. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you see drug addiction as a big issue. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm glad. It's a big problem. Like, I'm glad you're not arguing with me. No, I don't think I've ever found anybody that would argue the contrary to that. But you would find arguments as far as what to do about it. Sure. Right? So again, if you were given that chance. Well, and I think that the reason I go with that as like my first answer is also based on realistically like what do I want to do with my life, what do I want to do, and going into pharmacology, like obviously that's where my brain is at, right? So I didn't want to say like drugs and drug addiction as my number one because that's like the biggest issue in the world, right? Because I don't know if that necessarily is true. It's one of them. I mean, because so many other problems stem from it. Right. Right. You got homelessness. You got, and I'm not saying all homeless people are drug addicts. Got to get that out there too. Lots of things, unwanted pregnancies are a lot of times because of drug addiction. I mean, there's so many places that's going to go. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but I think the problem with, this is a hard one to talk about because it's like you got people that are addicted. And by the point they're addicted, I think it now is a mental health issue. It really has become that. And of course, there's the other side that argues, yes, but they made the choice originally to do those drugs. True. Not always, even. Well, yeah, maybe not always. There's other possibilities there too. Yeah. But yeah, it's just I guess I think like how do we fix that? Like if we're looking at people that are addicted to drugs or they're, because a lot of them is going to tell you they don't want help. Right. So, unless we're going to force it on people and we're going to start policing it in the sense like you're addicted to drugs, you're not allowed to be anywhere but in an institution until you're clean. But then now you're violating people's rights, Yeah. So it's kind of a touchy thing there. So yeah, it definitely is. Mm-hmm. And even just like mental illness issues in general. Right. I would say that would be another one, issue. What's wrong with the world? Everyone is mentally ill. Yeah, right. Increasingly. Yeah. Well, and then you're right. It's true, but I mean, then you go as far to one side as like, say, schizophrenia, and then you can go to another side where you say, like somebody like me that's been dealing with anxiety for my whole life, right? Since I was like 13. Mm-hmm. That's technically a mental disorder, right? It doesn't mean I'm sitting on the side of the road somewhere with naked, like talking to trees or something, of course, but I still have a problem that does affect my life, right? So there's like every different severity of things like that, yeah. Which again, the reason I bring it up and think about it is because that's what I want to do with my career. So okay, so as you go into your career, then you're going to be, because you get big pharma. Right, we talked about this earlier. There's big pharma, and that's like this big it's like a swear word, you know, it's like, oh, big pharma.
Right.
It's the enemy, the bad guy. So how do you view that? Do you view it that way? And like, you want to get in the system because you're going to be the good guy that's going to turn them around and we're going to start calling them little pharma now? Or like what, or are you just like, oh no, I like what big pharma is doing and I want to contribute to it?
I understand that people in the medical or like drug creation and distribution are in it for the money. I can see that. Right. And I recognize that that's not what's best medically for people.
Right.
But that it's also like a job. And if you sell this amount of this product and make this much money, like it kind of depends on who I'm talking to. Because some people, when I tell them that I want to go into pharmacology, they're like, wow, you're going to make so much money. Congrats. And then others are like, oh, wow, you're working for the devil. Like, what are you doing there?
Right. Yeah.
So, and again, I don't know exactly what I want to study specifically, and if that means taking things off the market or putting different things on the market or drug creation or, I don't know how that's going to end up for me yet. Yeah. But
are there any specifics that you like want to go into? Like if you like look at certain diseases or things like, well, you talked about like drug addiction. Is there like, do you want to develop things that would help with people that are trying to get off of drugs? Is like,
hopefully, yeah. Okay. It would help with, I can study neuroscience and figure out kind of starting off in just my own knowledge of like what is necessary to be taken and what is unnecessary, because I've never been medicated for my mental illnesses. Okay. And that was like something that stressed me out and I was like almost bitter about when I was younger. Okay. So I was like not taken seriously in that way.
So you struggle with mental health yourself?
Yeah,
okay.
I do.
Okay.
And I did when I was young and didn't even know what it was, which was really scary.
Yeah.
And has kind of inspired me to look into it more. It was originally for me. Like, I want to figure out what's wrong with myself. Right. And how can I get the best help without falling victim to big pharma and just like being put on medication that may or may not fix my problem.
May make it worse.
Right.
Right. I know for me, like in dealing with, I mean, for me it was mostly anxiety, but there's some depression in there too. And I know that like a lot of the antidepressants, there's been stories of people killing themselves when they take those because it makes the depression even worse. It's like, no, that's supposed to fix the problem, not make it worse, you know, but of course there's always side effects and things like that. So is it like what, I mean, if you don't mind sharing, like what have you been, like what's your mental health issues?
I struggle with anxiety.
Okay.
And my depression is more seasonal and like environmental than it is. Like my anxiety has just been kind of a constant in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it started when I was probably 7 or 8 and had no idea what it was.
Okay.
And I was just seen as like defiant.
Okay. Yeah.
But I didn't understand it for a long time. And then the first time I ever saw a therapist was over Zoom, which is automatically like not the best move.
Right.
They weren't a psychiatrist. They were just a therapist. And after one meeting, they were like, yeah, you need to go on meds. And I was like, what?
Really?
That doesn't really feel good. Like that doesn't really feel safe.
Right.
And you're going to just prescribe me this from across the country and have me start taking like mood stabilizers.
Which they're not supposed to do that.
Really sketch.
Yeah, not after one session because that kind of stuff takes a long time to properly diagnose anyway. So
yeah. So wasn't a huge fan of that. Immediately dropped them.
Okay.
But
good move.
Yeah, it was a long and annoying journey between me and my anxiety. Okay. But I understand it much better now.
Okay. So how old were you? You said you were 7 or 8 when you started having those kind of symptoms, but how old were you when you figured out what it was?
Probably like 13, maybe 12.
That's awesome.
Because I had really good friends, and one friend specifically who was like, this is what's happening to you.
Right.
Because it happens to me. And he was like seeing a counselor and was like kind of being talked through it.
Right.
And so I had to learn through my junior high friends, which is not a great source, but it was at least comforting to be like, it's not my fault and I'm not creating my own problems, which is another thing I was super worried about. Is like, why am I doing this to myself?
Yes. Yeah. That used to be one of my prayers. Although it sounds really funny to say it, but that was always one of my prayers, especially when I was, because I started having anxiety symptoms when I was like 13. That's when I started. Didn't have an idea what it was.
Yeah.
No clue. Go to the doctors, go to the ER, something's wrong with my brain, something's wrong with my heart, something's wrong with this. They do all the tests, he's fine. Which was good news, but at the same time was frustrating. Because I'm like, no, something's wrong or I wouldn't be here. Right. I don't like to be here. I'm not just having fun with this. Something's going on. You guys need to figure it out. So it wasn't until I was 33 that I finally figured out what that was. Wow. You know, and now I forgot where I was going with that. I knew I was going to do that because you said something and I was going to go back off you. And then I said, I better tell her about my anxiety first. And now I forgot where I was going with that. Crud. What were you just saying before that? Just
like how I figured out what it was and talking to my junior high friends about it.
Okay.
But
crap. Anyway, I'm sure it'll come back to it. But yeah, so like that's one of the nice things for you. Of being at the age you are, because unfortunately anxiety seems to be more common now.
Yeah.
Which means there's much more therapists that know about it. They're experts in it, all this kind of stuff. To where I was younger, it wasn't. It was just nobody could. They basically just run my vitals and be like, he's fine.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with him. You know.
Same way I would read. Yeah.
Right. And then it wasn't until I was 33 to where it got so bad for me where I wouldn't leave the house. I was just in my room all the time. I didn't want anybody, you know. And Bethany's like, something wrong. And my dad's like, what's wrong? I don't know. I just don't want to. I'm just a mess. Yeah. I'm having all these weird symptoms. Nobody can tell me what's going on. I think I'm going crazy. All this stuff. And then somebody finally said, well, I think maybe it's anxiety. And of course, I always pass that off like, that's stupid. These symptoms are real. Yeah. Don't try to tell me that like it's all in my head, because it's not all in my head. It's in my body. It's in my emotions. It's in my thoughts. It's everywhere. Yeah. So then that was when I finally, through a weird kind of series of events, got into a talk therapy where it was over the phone. So in person's probably the best, but this guy was able to help me a lot as far as like understanding what was happening with me, some tools to fix it. I don't know if you've ever gone through CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy. I always say CBT. People go, CBD? No, not CBD. That's different.
I mean,
yeah. Some people use that for that purpose, but no, it's cognitive behavioral therapy, which is pretty much the only known cure for anxiety, people with anxiety, panic disorder, that kind of stuff. So he walked me through a bunch of that. I never did meds, but it was mainly because that was one of my fears. Was the meds. Yeah. I was scared. It was like I was just saying, I was scared it was going to make me crazier.
Where I'm at.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to take that. What it makes me even more nuts than I already am, you know?
Yeah.
So that was really the only reason why it wasn't because I was some kind of like tough guy or something. Like, I don't need your meds. I'll do this on my own, you know? Yeah. Because I thought about it, but I was like, I don't know, you know? But I never went that route. But anyway.
How I feel right now is like I have so much so much is changing in my life and so much is unpredictable, and I can see how that might also like bleed into my anxiety. Yeah. And so I'm trying to. That's so stupid once I say it out loud. But like, I was gonna wait till everything calms down, and then if I still was considering meds, but as of right now, I want to do all the research first, and the best way for me to do that is to do that as a career. So yes, that's what I'm diving into.
Okay, so you're gonna help yourself out in the process. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just going to find my own.
There you go.
It's entirely selfish.
Well, I mean, like, knowledge is power. I mean, there is some truth to that. Yeah. You know, a lot of times people are just ignorant and unknowledgeable about certain things, and that's why they don't have the answers, you know? But
I am hoping that, like, in my research, it can be helpful for other people. And if that means creating something and researching, then I would go down that route. And if it means, like, working for the FDA and taking things off the market, then that's also a route I would be.
So are there any things that are in that field that you already think to yourself, I think that should be off the market?
No, not specifically. Okay. I definitely worry about like over medicating and over diagnosing kids in time where it's a very anxiety-inducing world. But I also recognize the difference between anxiety that is something... I feel like some people should be anxious, and it's, like, valid that you're anxious. Yeah. And then other times it's, like, for me when I was younger. I'm trying to think of the word. I don't even remember what it was. But like, there was no reason for me to be anxious.
Right.
And I couldn't pinpoint it, and there was nothing wrong.
It's irrational.
Nothing was going to happen. Yeah, super irrational. I think that might have been the word I was looking for.
Yeah. Well, and that's what makes it a disorder. I recognize that there
are two of those.
Yes.
And you can treat this one as much as you want, but the irrational doesn't necessarily go away when the situation changes.
Correct.
So.
Right.
Even in my own life, just trying to figure out which is which and which one is affecting me and which one needs more attention.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's why I often use the example, because anxiety is it's God-given. Like it's a thing that's supposed to happen in certain situations. Like if you're, if you're need to run away for, like, the fight or flight, right? They say if you need to protect yourself or you need to run away from something that's going to kill you, then it's good to have that
fear. Stress is good for you.
Yes, it can be. But the problem with people like us that have a disorder is everything can be great. Nothing's happening. The sun's shining, the birds are chirping, everything's wonderful, and all of a sudden, boom, I get hit with all these weird anxiety symptoms. Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Why is my heart racing and why am I dizzy? Why is all this happening? Oh, I don't know.
Super frustrating.
Yeah. So it's almost like a malfunction of a machine that's supposed to be there, but it's malfunctioning, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we talked about in the CBT also, is like, you need to kind of retrain your mind to not react that way or not have that, which is hard because it's like a reprogramming of a defective machine,
Yeah.
So that's brutal. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's something I definitely see wrong with the world, is also like I said, overdiagnosing.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard to tell somebody else like this is the irrational part, and this is what can be fixed in your environment to make these anxieties go away.
Right.
And it's a stressful world, and I feel bad for kids especially.
Right. Do you think, though, okay, so I'll throw this at you. Do you think that our world today is more stressful than it was, say, 30, 40 years ago? Well, I guess it's two questions. That's the first question. And the second question is, like, do you think that we are also at the same time kind of creating, in a sense...
Like overanalyzing?
Not necessarily overanalyzing, but like creating a world, right? Because there's stressors that are going to be in the world no matter what. But then almost like as a society, we seem to be creating more of a world for the younger generations where there's like triggered, right? We use the word triggered a lot, where kids are more triggered now, and there's more emotional turmoil. There's more anxiety. There's more depression happening. Do you think that's solely the result of just a more stressful world, or do you think that there's things like that we're almost doing on purpose, like for society? I'm probably not making any sense. I'm all over the place.
No, I'm just trying to be able to answer.
Okay.
Honestly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we are creating a more stressful, anxiety-inducing world. Definitely. I think there's something to be said about the foods that we eat and the way that our day looks.
Okay.
And it's always true that where there is more like social media, there is more anxiety.
Okay.
And that's been charted in like kids and teenagers especially.
Now, why is that, do you think?
I think it's scary to know too much
about other people.
Same, nothing at all. Like I said, I don't use my Instagram to learn things, but you could create the illusion that you're like learning things, and you're always taking something in. You're always paying attention, even when you're just aimlessly scrolling.
Right.
And I think that creates anxiety in kids. Is like seeing so much for such a short amount of time, and then we're making attention spans shorter at the same time, and that's like that's something I notice even with myself, that I can't watch if I get caught in a loop of like watching videos really fast,
Yeah.
it'll like stress me out for the rest of the day. And then
Okay.
my brain is like in double speed. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much what TikTok is, right? And that's
Right.
like Reels and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's all what that is.
And at the same time, there's also like social pressures. And in my life, I haven't really experienced it. And I think maybe because I've been careful with social media, but I think that in girls especially, it's a known thing that like if you spend too much time on social media, you'll start to wish you were like this.
Right.
Maybe not with just girls. I probably shouldn't have said
Well,
that.
no, I think that's a good
But-
generalization. I mean, I think there's exceptions, but I think for the most part, girls tend to be more concerned with certain things, right?
Yeah.
Like if, and I've talked to people like this, but they'll, girls will post a selfie on Facebook or something, let's say, and let's say 250 people respond and say, "Oh, you're so pretty, you're so beautiful, I love that shirt, I love your hair," or whatever, right? Let's say it's 250 people, and one person says, "Man, you are ugly," right? What does that girl fixate on? That one person most of the time, and that's going to destroy her whole day.
Well, that, or even if no one says anything negative, then
Right.
the next time that you like feel good or feel pretty, you need 250
Yes.
people worth of validation.
Exactly.
And that can
Right.
that can build up so quickly. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's another thing that can cause anxiety or yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely where there's more social media, there's more anxiety and stress for kids at the same time as I think life looks a lot different now.
Yeah.
That there's so much technology and kids have to sit in school on a computer for 8 hours and then
Yeah.
are expected to just be normal after that. Like,
Right.
I can't even comprehend that.
Yeah.
And I think, like we talked about, stress is a good thing. Like, that's how you survive. But I think daily life used to involve a lot more movement and a lot more exercise.
Okay.
And those are also things that
Yeah.
those are outlets
Yep.
and healthy. And so when your exercise is messed up and food is not good and you're in front of a screen all day with things passing by really quickly,
Right.
like,
Right.
no wonder everyone's stressed out.
Yeah.
So
No, those are all awesome points.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that Alora and I talk about a lot because she's very much into like the health and the,
right.
whether it's the food or the mental health, that kind of stuff. So I know it's not directly related, but you talk about like, big pharma, but then people also brings in like the food companies and stuff that are mass producing, because in the old days you had a farm, maybe you had a couple cows, you would trade some milk with, Farmer Joe down the road to give you some carrots or whatever. And
Yeah.
there's this bartering system. But then at some point they realized, hey, we can make billions of dollars doing this. So start pumping the cows up full of steroids and let's produce way more milk than they're supposed to, or, and this is true of every food, not just
Right.
milk. I'm just using that as a general, but and you see the dollar signs, right? It always goes back to the money. And now we have all these issues where we have all this stuff. All the food needs to last longer in the grocery store. So we got to add all these preservatives and all this, and I think now we're starting to see the long-term effects of that. But here's where I have a hard time. How can we be sure of that? Like, all we can really say is like, all right, we're having all these problems now that we didn't used to have before. And there's an increase in this in our food that there wasn't there before. Mm-hmm. And that's like as far as we can go. Like, it's really hard to pinpoint specifically like what is doing it. You know what I mean? Like, because if we could just say, oh, it's just
Yeah.
one ingredient that they're adding to this. All right, let's get rid of that. All right, we're all good. It's
Yeah.
like, or is it just an overall, like just processed foods in general that is causing a problem,
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't have like a direct answer of like this is the problem, this is how
Yeah.
to fix it. But I mean, with trial and error, people have found that for themselves of like things that they didn't know they shouldn't be eating because it's not like an allergy. It's more of I don't even know.
But is it individualized though? Because like, if you do that and let's say you find out, you find out egg whites are giving you stomach issues, and through all this process of elimination, you finally figure out that's the one thing that's doing it. So then I won't eat egg whites anymore, and then your stomach's great for the rest of your life. But the guy, say my wife living with me, she can eat egg whites, no problem.
Yeah.
So it's individual as opposed to something affecting everybody the same way. And I think that's what's difficult with food, right? There's allergies that people have, but then there's also just kind of, I forgot the other word they use is sensitivities. There's a difference, they said.
Well, and I don't think that with sensitivities, I don't think that that's the problem in processed foods.
Okay.
Because I think you can also build up tolerances. And so I think to argue that some people are more tolerant to processed foods.
Okay.
But in general, I don't think it's good for anyone.
Okay.
Like, I don't think anybody's at their best.
Yeah.
When we're all having so much processed foods and sugars and dyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what I meant by process of elimination. Like, if you look at a kid who has no sugar all day versus a kid who had a juice box for lunch.
Right.
Like, there is behavioral differences.
Oh, totally. Right. Yeah.
And so if we can see it on like such a scale like that, yes, it would be super hard to cut out sugar, but
only because they're used to it.
Process thing.
Right. Like if you were brought up in a household that didn't eat a lot of sugar, you wouldn't really need to be weaned off of it, or it wouldn't be that big a deal for you until you tried it maybe. And you'd be like, ooh, I've been missing this my whole life.
But I even know people who had like a lot less sugar and, like you said, didn't build up a tolerance to it. And when they do have it every once in a while, it like wrecks them.
Okay.
And so it's just like magnified. It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better because it's still processed and unhealthy. Like, it's always going to be that way.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you think that adds to things like ADHD and that kind of thing, which there also seems to be an abundance of diagnosis of that, you know?
Probably. I don't want to ignorantly say yes or no
Right.
to something like that. And I think that it's hard when there are also concrete steps that you can take to change the environment that makes anxiety without it sounding like a dismissal. So I don't want to say like, oh, it's just because of the foods you're eating and then you won't have ADHD.
Right, exactly.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, I know.
And that's not what I think.
Right.
But
that's what's difficult. And that's what I mean. It's probably this like conglomeration of so many different things, right? And that's what I mean about it being hard to pinpoint, because that would be such an easy fix, right? Oh, we found out that this one thing, let's say cancer. Let's say they found out that, like, I don't know, celery caused cancer. And all the people, and they know, oh, we finally figured it out. Then you just get rid of all the celery, and then cancer goes away.
Well, some people would argue that cancer cures have been found, and that
they would
held hostage because it costs so much money.
They would. What do you think about that?
I think that's a conspiracy, but I also wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
Like,
it makes sense,
so many
right?
people have been studying something for so long, getting so rich off of it.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. The reason, so you're right, that is definitely in the conspiracy theory category, but it's one of the ones that when I think about the reasons and the whys of it, it does make sense.
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to jump in with both feet, only because I think to myself, okay, let's say there's some guy that developed the cure for cancer, like I think the one I read was like in the 70s or something. Somebody found the cure for cancer in the 70s or something, and he's been being stifled ever since. And I'm like, but like if it was just one guy or like all these different things and he got the research and he passed it down to this and everybody knows, I'm like, that's going to get out eventually. Something's going to happen there. I mean, somebody's going to not be killed and he's going to get, you know what I mean? It's just hard for me to believe that big pharma has been able to keep all these people away. Because there's a couple books that came out about changing your diet, and because there's been testimonials of people that had terminal cancer. They changed their diet. You know, I always jokingly say, they just started eating broccoli or whatever, because that was one of the big things. Eat broccoli and stop eating this and start eating this. And then their cancer went away. Okay. But the reason why you don't see that as such a widespread cure is because it doesn't work for everybody. Yeah. Right? It might have worked for that one guy. I don't know. But again, you would have to be able to do like a quantum reality thing where you could have that guy go down one road where he doesn't change his diet and one where he does, and then in the one cancer goes away and the one doesn't, because sometimes people's cancer just goes away and nobody knows why. Right. It was there at one doctor visit and then it was gone the next. You know, it's like, what happened? You know, so it's such a hard thing to really pin down. You know, but the idea that big pharma who's making all kinds of money off chemo and making money off of radiation treatments and all these other treatments for cancer, to have someone come in and cure cancer, they'd be out a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
you could say the same about like drugs for mental illnesses.
Yes.
If you actually cure people.
Right.
And that's where it's hard because it's physical symptoms, but it is a mental disorder.
Right.
Like, if you actually did cure people,
right.
they wouldn't need that anymore.
Right, but from the other side, you mentioned over-diagnosing, which could be the case for the other side, that the more that they diagnose, the more product you can sell.
Yeah. Right?
And I think there's a lot of that, too. Like, I mean, I'm tired, and this is just my opinion with the ADHD thing. I get so tired of every time usually a boy is just rambunctious or he's got a low attention span. Oh, ADHD. Let's get him some drugs. That's every boy on the planet, right? Like if I meet a 5-year-old boy and he's not bouncing off the walls and he's not like has a low attention span, that's weird. Right?
Well, and like you said,
very
I don't
strange.
think it's normal for people to be forced to sit still for 8 hours
yes.
and then be normal afterwards.
Right, exactly.
So I think there is some overdiagnosing there, and maybe not even overdiagnosing, but that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like lifestyle change is the answer there.
Okay.
And I understand that not everybody can like afford to not have their kids in public school.
Mm-hmm.
But public school.
You a big fan?
No.
No?
No, it's a lot of sitting, and it's not like the environment for every kid.
Mm-hmm.
Some kids I'm sure do very well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like kids with ADHD, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a problem or that their ADHD is a problem. They just need like different learning environment.
Yeah, a different avenue to exactly.
Yeah, and public school doesn't offer any other environments other than sitting in front of your computer for the whole entire day. Yeah. So. And
that's the beauty of homeschooling. One of the beauties of homeschooling is that you can, because I know we have 4 kids. We homeschooled them all. I'm sure your parents would attest to this too with the 6 that they had. Because I homeschooled all you guys, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And just be able to say all kids are different. They all learn different. They all have strengths and weaknesses, and we've seen that with our kids. And the beauty of homeschooling is you can focus on the weaknesses and try to, let's say you're not as good at science, so let's focus more on science. But math, you're a genius on that. We don't even need to spend as much time. But you go to public school, you have to spend the same amount of time because you have this big. Again, all kids are different. You got this whole classroom full of 35 kids who all have different learning styles, different areas they're at. Some are more smarter than other ones, and But the teacher has this job where she's got to somehow make that fit for everybody, which can't be easy.
Yeah. And even aside from like learning specific subjects, like I can remember when we were being rowdy, my mom would just be like, okay, go run to the stop sign. We would just like literally go outside and like run down the block.
Nice.
And you can't do that in a public school. And like you can't give them opportunities to like go be crazy for a sec so that you can sit down and learn something. Because there's just too many.
Yeah.
And I totally like that's not teachers' fault, and it's not. It's just the setup of public school that like I'm thankful that I was homeschooled for that reason. So that I was able to do things at my own pace, sitting however I wanted. I used to like be upside down with my feet up on the couch like this.
Oh, nice.
And that's like how I learned best, was because I was comfortable like that.
No wonder you love school.
And it wasn't and it wasn't because I had to sit still, and because I wasn't good at that either. I wasn't good at sitting still and being quiet. So that's not what school looked like for me. So do you see any downfalls to homeschooling? Yes, and especially more now because it's the same. It's all going on computers. And I was primarily homeschooled with workbooks. Okay. Like my mom didn't lecture me. It was just, here's your assignment, read this many pages, read this directions, and do the work underneath it. And so I did mostly workbooks until like junior high, I think. Junior high, I did like maybe 1 or 2 online classes. And then, so yeah, that's what it looked like for me versus like my younger siblings now. Most of their school is online, or they have to put things online. And and that's different because I think there's value to like writing on a page and reading from a page rather than looking at a screen. And clicking buttons to get the answer instead.
So when you have, I assume, do you want kids someday or no? You don't know yet?
Probably.
Okay. So when you have kids someday, do you plan to homeschool them as well? Or
No, I don't.
Okay.
Because I want to work.
Okay.
And I don't think that I would be available to school them properly.
So you'd send them to public school, or would you go private school, or just tell them they're not allowed to learn and they're just going to be dumb their whole lives? Or?
Yeah. I don't know. It feels like so far in my future that I don't really have a plan.
Okay.
And it also depends on who, like, my partner is at that time.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I can just marry someone who will stay at home and stay home dad.
There you go. Them. Would you like that?
If I am a doctor, yeah.
Like if finances weren't a problem, you would prefer to have him stay home with the kids as opposed to both of you working full time.
If he wanted to,
school.
I would be totally okay with that. I don't think like a man has to go get a job.
Right. Yeah.
I think if I was able to provide for my family and they wanted to be at home,
right. Do you see that? So
fine with that. Like, I'm not against homeschooling. I just personally, I don't want to be the teacher.
You don't want to do it, yeah. Okay. But when you look at, like, people talk like the nuclear family, and it's the typical, dad brings home the bacon, mom's at home, making the meals and cleaning the house. All right. Hey, you're already kind of making a face when I'm talking about it.
Sorry. I'm really not trying to.
It's involuntary.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've talked to people about that before, and I'm not saying necessarily hold to that, but it's. Do you think, though, like, regardless of which parent does so, do you think that one should be the provider and one should take care of the home, whether it's the dad or the mom, or do you think that it's just as healthy for both parents to work outside the home and have the kids be at school or at daycare or whatever? Do you see, like, either one of those as a more beneficial?
I don't know. I don't think everyone has the opportunity to have a parent stay home full time.
That's true. But I mean, ideally, like, if you could pick the situation, do you think there's one that's better than the other? Obviously, there's situations where you have no control over.
I would say having a parent at home is probably
the better
ideal.
Alternative. Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't care if it's the dad or the mom, doesn't make any difference?
I'm not like a super nurturing type, and I don't want to homeschool, and I want to work. Like, I enjoy working.
Okay.
And so for that reason, I wouldn't mind if it's not me.
Okay. Would that be like a deal breaker, though? Like, if, say, you're let's say 4 or 5 years from now, you're still with the same guy, you guys are talking marriage, you're talking families and kids, and let's say his whole thing is just what you said. He says, I love to work. But at the same time, I don't want my kids in daycare all day. I don't want them in public school. Would that be kind of like you going, maybe this isn't going to work out?
No, I definitely wouldn't ask someone to do what I don't want to do. I think that's totally a double standard, and I would be fine, like, figuring that out, whether that's private school or having someone else homeschool my kids or doing a charter or something. But no, that's not a deal breaker for me. It would be a deal breaker if I was with someone who said, I'm looking for a stay-at-home mom to marry.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
But I wouldn't ask someone else to do it for me.
Right. Well, I guess that was kind of the scenario. I didn't say it that way, but, like, if he's very adamant about saying, I want to be the worker.
Yeah, no.
But I also don't want my kids to be in public school or private school or anything. I want them to be homeschooled. That
sucks. I guess we're not having kids.
She'd be like, all right, kick you to the curb. Okay. All right. So as far as, like, public school, do you see any other problems with public school system other than the lack of activity and the lack of, like, because a lot of parents now are talking about indoctrination, or when COVID happened, a lot of parents are like, oh, you're trying to tell me my kid has to be vaccinated in order to go. Like, there's all these, it seems like public school now is under fire more than it has been in 10 years ago. It was not under fire the way it is right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know a whole lot about what's being taught in public schools. I'm not, like, in close contact with any kids in public school. So I only know from, like, what my friends experienced when I was at their age.
Okay.
So I don't know a whole lot about what's actually being taught or not. I know there, like you said, people are freaking out about indoctrination, but
Right.
I feel like if you're sending your kid to go learn with someone else, you're going to have to be okay with what someone else teaches your kid.
Yeah, but that's true. And I think that's why a lot of parents are opting just not to do it.
Sure.
Because the thing is, they don't trust the school system,
and if
they
you're
don't
available
trust the
to
teacher.
do that and to school your own child, then absolutely do that.
But what if you're not?
I totally am okay with that.
So what if you're not available? Let's say you're a single mom and you have 4 kids and they're all school age, and you're working 2 jobs just to put food on the table, so you can't afford the time to homeschool your kids, so they have to go to public school.
Yeah.
But let's say the only public schools in your area are, well, let's just use an example from the news. Let's say that in the elementary school, there is sexualized books in the library. So now your choice is, well, really, there is no choice, really, because you can't afford to homeschool them on your own.
Yeah, no.
You could take them out of the school and say you're not going to school, or you could go to the school board and try to fight to get rid of that, right?
Which, absolutely try and fight to get rid of that, but I think it just forces families to kind of work double time. Like, they have to go learn in school, and then you also have to instill your values a little bit harder.
Okay.
Like your family values are not being taught in school anymore, and that would be convenient, but now you kind of have to focus more on that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You are with your kids.
Yeah, because then they'll see the contrast.
Right, and
well, especially from a Christian home, you'll see the contrast between the worldly system versus Christianity.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is the parents' jobs anyways.
I agree.
So yes, it will make your job as a parent harder, but if you're not available to be home with your kids, then
and you're just
I
kind of
can't really see a way around it.
Yeah,
because I don't think it's ever okay to pull your kid out of school if you're not going to teach them anything. Like that doesn't really seem like a realistic option. I don't think that's legal.
It's not.
Okay, good.
It's not legal.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm even wondering if certain places might start trying to make things like homeschooling illegal. Especially because like all the things I was just talking about, and there's such a rise in homeschooling now. Because homeschooling used to be primarily kind of a Christian thing, right? It was usually Christian families didn't want their kids in public school because of the things they were going to be exposed to, or the for a while there was like evolutionary biology that was being pushed, and there's like, oh, I don't want my kids learning that. But now with everything else going on in public schools, there are plenty of atheists I know that don't want to send their kids to public school anymore just because of their own safety, or it could be anything. It'd be school shootings, or boys in the girls' locker rooms, or I mean, there's, like I said, books in the library. Like there's all these different things that parents are like, why does that have to be happening? Like, why do I have to deal with that? So it's become a much more of a hot topic issue than it used to be, I think. But
I don't know what the root of all of that is, or how to fix it. I'm just
along for the ride.
Not a mom, and I'm thankful for that.
No dog in this fight. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh man, that's awesome. Have you ever thought about like how many? Do you want a lot of kids? Do you want a big family like yours, or do you?
I don't know. I definitely enjoy having a lot of siblings. Like I wouldn't trade that for anything. But again, it depends on my partner. I think if I ended up with somebody who like didn't want kids, I would be okay with that.
Okay. Really? That wouldn't be a deal breaker for you, huh?
It's not right now.
Okay.
And before I met my current boyfriend, I was kind of like, I don't really want kids. That seems like too much pressure and too much money and too much time.
Right.
But kind of because of his influence and who he is, like I could picture myself having a family with him.
Okay. It's
just hard to think of like a hypothetical that doesn't involve him in it, and then like I don't know.
Yeah. And how long you guys been together now?
Because he wants kids. Just over a year.
Okay. That's pretty new. And he does want kids?
Yeah.
You guys have already talked
definitely
about that?
That's a deal breaker for him, and it wasn't a deal breaker for me. So I was like, okay, I'd be willing to talk about this at some point. Yeah.
Nice.
But no, I don't really have a number or like a goal.
Yeah.
It depends on a lot of different things of like what work life, home life looks like, and then also like where we're at.
Yeah.
Location wise.
Right.
So
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's all very far away.
Yeah. Well, it can be. I mean, what are you, 20?
Yeah.
You said you were 20. So yeah, I already had a Laura by the time I was your age, so. And Bethany was 18, so
yeah.
So we started a little younger. But I mean, I'm noticing there's a common kind of thought there with like your generation is that, and some of it's a good thing, I think. You know, more like what you're saying, want to be more prepared. You want to make sure that you are financially stable, make sure you're in the right relationship, make sure that you kind of have your life goals in place first before you start adding people to the world, right?
Yeah.
But then there's the other side where a lot of people from your age group right now that are saying they never want kids. And I think the number of people that don't want kids that's astronomically higher than it used to be.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of, a lot of people are just like, I just don't want kids. I just don't want, and I even work with a lot of people that are maybe even in their mid 30s and they're married, but they married and they were both, of course they talked about it before they get married, but neither one of them just wanted kids. It's like, no, we just want to be married and have fun and go do our thing and not have to worry about kids.
Yeah. And
I say, well, I'm glad that since you feel that way, I'm glad you don't have them. Right? Because right. It's always the people that do have kids and like, I don't want these stupid kids. Yeah. Whose idea was this anyway? What are we doing? Yeah. But then there's the people who say, well, I don't think I'm ready yet. And again, I think that there's definitely a truth to that. But I also don't think anybody's really ever truly ready.
I would agree with that sentiment. But I also feel like God is in control of those small things. And like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
That's true. That is true.
It's hard for me to like make up my mind about that when I feel like it's not in my control.
Right.
Especially because it's like all so far in the future to be making those decisions. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right there. I know you've said that a few times, and you're right. Why even worry about it at this point? If you're seeing it like years down the line, but the fact that you guys have already at least talked about it just to determine
we talked about it before we were
do
together.
Want kids. Interesting. Okay.
Because that was kind of the foundation of mine and his relationship, was just like long discussions where we disagreed.
Okay.
And that was one of the things we talked about before we were even together. We were just friends. It was like, why do you want kids and why do I not want kids?
Right.
And we disagreed, but now that we're together, I've been a little more lenient.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Well, that's it for that. Do you have anything other in that vein that you want to talk about?
I'm sure I would if I reverted to the first question, but no, I'm ready.
If you did what to the first question?
If we went back to like the origin of that string of conversation.
Oh, I don't remember where that was. I remember asking you
what's wrong with the world?
What's wrong with the world? Yeah.
Don't have kids.
Yeah, don't have kids. Yeah, because then we'll all just die off anyway, right? And it'll just be a big empty planet. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you don't have anything else there, we'll go into spirituality.
Okay.
If you're ready.
Yeah.
All right. You need a break, or you good?
I'm good.
You're good. All right. So I'm just gonna. I mean, I know your family anyway. I don't know your personal beliefs, but you are wearing a Jesus Loves You shirt. Yep. So I'd be willing to guess that you do identify as a Christian.
I do.
Okay, so I'm not overstepping my bounds there. So the question I usually ask to someone who, like you, grew up in the church and is now an adult, was there ever a point, was there a point, and if there was, when was it, that you kind of had to come into your own? Like where you realized, okay, yes, I've been growing up believing this because my parents believe this and we go to church and we do this whole thing, but was there ever a moment where you had to kind of come to terms with what you actually believe yourself and kind of examine that for yourself? Or
I can't pinpoint one specific moment. I know that growing up, it was like one of my anxieties was like, what if I didn't ask for salvation right? And so I would like on a loop every day be like, God, please don't send me to hell. Like I just like I know I made mistakes and like please be my savior. And I'd be like, wait, maybe I did it like in the wrong order. Like maybe I didn't say this prayer right. And so that was like constantly on a loop in my brain of like, wait, what if I just thought I did it and I didn't?
Okay.
And what if I die later today and I accidentally go to hell?
Right.
So,
how do you view that now as an adult? Do you look back and
it's so sad.
Okay.
That like I was stuck in that.
Yeah.
And that I think it's super valuable to teach your kids about heaven and how to get there, but not to the point where it's like stressing them out.
Not the fear tactic of scaring the hell out of them, as people would say.
Yeah.
Literally.
And I don't think that was intentional, because we also learned about, like, Jesus loves you.
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah. So I got baptized when I was 8, and I was like, okay, this is people watching. Like, there's no way I made this up in my head. Like, I actually did do it right.
Right.
So that was like...
There's witnesses.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I actually said it. Like, people believe me. Like, I'm going to be fine. I'm secure for eternity.
Right.
Like, check that box. So I got baptized when I was 8, and I knew what I was doing, because I know some people, like, get baptized again when they're older.
Yeah.
If they were too young.
Yeah.
And even in the church that I got baptized at, a couple of years later, they instated a rule that you had to be like 10 or 11.
You just
they, like,
made it.
Had like an age rule, and I was like,
oh, wow.
No, I knew what I was doing, and I was only 8, so I don't necessarily agree with that.
So you don't foresee yourself ever getting water baptized ever again? Like,
I don't feel the need to.
Okay.
Like, I think that, I don't feel the need to.
Okay.
Not that you need to get baptized anyways.
Right.
But
some would disagree with you on that, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to be water baptized.
I don't think you need to. I think it's more of a heart posture thing.
Yes.
But anyway, so I was 8 for that, and grew up in the church. We did Awana, we did youth group, we did Bible studies, we did CBS, we did like all the things.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
That's how you get into heaven.
Taught as part of my homeschooling. If only you could have convinced me. Yeah, so very, very ingrained in me when I was younger. And I'm trying to think. I went to camps where you would have like a camp high and feel like I was spiritually liberated.
Right.
When it was just like a really good key change.
Right.
And that kind of thing.
But see, that's what I'm talking about. See, and I think that's awesome. So you look back on that now and you see the flaw there. Yeah. Right? Like, even though at the time, let's say somebody tried to talk to you, let's say the right now you went back and tried to talk to the you then when you were experiencing that, the you then would be like, no, you're wrong.
And I don't think I would try and convince myself.
Okay.
I think that was like, I think those moments are super important. And if you feel drawn close to God, like, who am I to tell you that you're not actually that close? It was just manipulation. But I do see that even today. Like, I've gone to some like conferences and like worship nights, and I feel like that are a little more charismatic than me. And I feel like I can look around the room and see, like, you guys are being manipulated to start crying. And that, like, makes me feel awful. But I'm going to go to the person who's manipulating them, not the person who's crying. Like, if you're having a spiritual moment, it's not necessarily my place to judge, but
you would go to that person and talk to them about it?
Yeah.
Like the person who's doing the manipulating?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been in a couple situations where I'm like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like a holy moment. This feels like emotional manipulation. Okay. And I think that's a really scary thing in like the charismatic church. Yeah. Which isn't what I was raised in. No. In my church, we didn't even clap. Like, it was like, you can stand up for worship, and even that is like brave. Right. But kind of as I've tried other churches and gone out on my own, and even at Hume, they get a little more riled up. Right. They're still pretty tame.
Well, because Hume is non-denominational, right? I mean, they probably have groups from all different walks in there at the same time. So
yeah, I think they are non-denominational on paper. Because, like you said, they want to be able to reach everyone who comes in for just a week. Right. And even the speakers at Hume are not Hume residents. Like, most of them just come and go and teach and come through. So
guest speakers kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I was exposed to a lot more at Hume, and then even as I moved again down south. And I think in LA right now there's kind of a movement of more charismatic younger people. Which I didn't really expect, but I've gone to a couple different churches and conferences and things where I feel like this isn't exactly right. Right. It doesn't feel like it's rooted in theology. It feels like it's rooted in emotions, and those can change when you leave. Right. So
is that kind of the way that you walk your Christian walk? Is like you would compare things to scripture and say like, this is the litmus test kind of thing? Like,
that's what I try to do, and have it not be based on emotions.
Right. That's smart.
So yeah, I think that the Bible is like the final word on those things.
Okay.
And even pastors teaching from the Bible need to be questioned.
Everybody needs to be questioned, yeah.
Yeah, so it puts me in good discussions, and I frustrate some people sometimes, and even created like rifts between me and my parents when I would like question them, and they'd be like, "You're just being difficult." And I was like, "No, like I really don't know if you know your stuff, and if you do, you should be able to take a question." Yeah. Even though it was like 8 questions, and I was like, maybe that was me being difficult, but I think that's another way that spiritually my life changes, when I was just like questioning everything. Yeah. And then when I lived in Tennessee, I was all alone. I was going through it. I still like believed in God and would pray to God, but he was my only friend. And that's not the best way to live. I wasn't thriving. And so I hit the point where I was like, I don't know what I want to do for school. I hate my little job. I hate living here. So I'm just going to give 100% of my time to God. And that's when I signed up for the missionary organization, YouthWorks. And that was me saying like, okay, God, I don't want to do life anymore, so I'll just be a missionary and have everything all day be about you, so that it's not about me. Take the pressure off of me. This isn't really my life. Yeah. And so I think some people would categorize that as like the moment I really gave my life to Christ.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Because I wasn't holding anything back anymore. It wasn't like my salvation backpack.
So how do you view that, though? Do you view it that you actually did get saved at whatever age you were, 6 or 7, because you got baptized at 8, and then that as an adult or during that time you just mentioned, that's kind of just like when you jumped all the way in? Or would you see it as maybe you didn't get saved when you were 6 or 7, but that was the moment you did? Like, how would you describe that?
I don't know. I think that's where it relies on heart posture, because I think when I was really young, like, I think if I would have been in an accident or died or something, that I would have gone to heaven. Okay. So I think I was saved. Okay. But I didn't have the full understanding of what it was like to give everything in every moment.
Right. Which, how can you at 6 or 7? I really don't think you can fully grasp that.
And it sucks that I had to like hit rock bottom to give everything to God, and I don't wish that upon anyone, but it is a story I hear over and over again. It's like when there's nothing else. Right.
But then wouldn't you wish that on people then? If that was the only way that they were ever going to come to Christ?
If it's the only way, sure.
Right.
But I don't necessarily think that that's a black and white line of like, you have to lose everything.
No, I agree with you. So
that's what I mean. Like, I don't wish it on someone. I wish that
you wish there was another way.
That it could have been in a more...
Okay. All right, well, this is cool. This is like you're speaking my language here, because I am also the guy that questions everything and tends to... Well, people seem to either really like me for that or try to keep their distance from me from that in the church, right? Like I've had run-ins with people in different churches I've been a part of that don't like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I've even kind of got who are you to question me? I'm the pastor. Or, you know, it's like, well, dude, it's like, okay, hello, you're preaching this up there. I'm just asking a question. I'm not saying you're wrong. Just show me where it says that, you know, because I'm also kind of a Bible literalist, and I'm like you, that I want to compare everything to the scripture. I question everything. I even question my own motives. I question my own feelings and emotions. And if I'm in a church service or in a like a worship, what we would call a worship service, you know, where you have the singing and the different, you know, physical postures that people may be in, whether you're in a church, like you said, where you're not even allowed to clap and everybody just kind of stands there, or you get all the way to the other side of it where people are flopping around on the ground and they're quacking like ducks, saying the Holy Spirit made them a duck for today, and this is how we're worshiping the Lord. I'm just like, come on, people. My question is always like, who's that for? Yeah. Right? Like with anything. But I kind of wanted to ask you, like, because you were kind of talking about the kind of charismatic, so are you like, would you consider yourself kind of like anti that, or?
I don't know. Okay. And there's definitely like different degrees of Charismatics.
Oh, for sure.
I think that the specific instances that I've been in, like speaking in tongues, has been taken not biblically, so I'm kind of anti that.
All right. We're definitely talking about
in the
that.
way that it's gone. But I'm not anti like worshiping with your body how you feel is right. Like if you're down on the ground, that's fine, and if you're like
what if you're
running
flopping
around in a circle, like that's fine.
okay too.
Flopping around, I would again question like if you're doing that down in the front, like maybe you need to get your priorities straight.
Is that because
if you're like in the back, unable to control yourself, then like that's
go for it.
Fine.
So is the issue with it, in your opinion, the distraction of it? Like if you're distracting other people?
No, not a distraction, more of like a display.
Okay.
Like you said, who is this for?
Like if it's like, look at me kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if it's like trying to prove that you're having a moment with God, like for what? Like
yeah, because to me, I mean, when I see that stuff, my first thought is always like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, because first of all, most of the people, even in the church, are going to look at you and go, dude, what are you doing? But then I think about like, what if somebody's there for their first time and they're just say they're seeking, let's say they're an atheist and like, I really think I need God in my life. I'm going to go to this church on the corner over here. And they walk in there and people are just nuts. And they walk out of there going, oh, I guess that's what Christianity's like. And I'm somewhere in a corner somewhere going, no, it's not what it's like. These people are not representing Christ. Stop it. And I get kind of bent out of shape about it just because I don't want kind of the wrong, I'm with you. Like if someone wants to put their hands up or if they want to worship in the way that they want, I draw the line at distraction. Like, because if you start distracting other people from their worshiping of the Lord.
Like God wouldn't do that to you. Like God wouldn't.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, but I know it happens. I know I'm very observant, which is to my downfall a lot, especially in a church service, because I find myself noticing and looking around stuff, which I shouldn't be doing. But like for me, if I'm like in a moment and I'm feeling really connected to the Lord through a song or something, and I'm, because I'm not an outward posture guy, but I can, depending on the words of the song, feel like I'm very connected to God during a song and during worship service. And if some guy next to me or wherever either gets really loud or he starts doing something physically that out of the corner of my eye, I can like see it. And all of a sudden, here's my focus on God. And now I'm like, boom, like it's gone, right?
Yeah. So
I'm just like, what are you doing? But that's a difficult one because if you go to somebody like that and you say, hey, can you stop that? They're gonna be like, hey, this is how I worship.
Yeah.
Don't tell me how to worship.
I wouldn't. Yeah. For me, I wouldn't draw the line at distraction because, like you said, that might be your own problem
absolutely.
And not someone else's.
Yes.
And I feel like, again, I'm not going to go to the person who's being a distraction.
Right.
I'm going to go to the person who's encouraging them to do that and like pushing that and telling you that if the Holy Spirit's really in you, you're going to do something crazy.
Yes. See,
that's where I find the issue.
Right.
And it's not necessarily the way someone's worshiping doesn't bother me. It's like the intention behind it.
Okay.
And the theology behind it.
Yes.
That gets a little muddy.
Right. Which that's going to lead us into tongues. I was going to say that when I kind of noticed that you were talking about like emotional manipulation, is that the way you worded it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when I first started to notice that, because when we first started going to church and you kind of get caught up in the worship service, I started to notice I would have those same feelings and the same experience when maybe listening to a secular song or watching a movie that wasn't a Christian movie and had nothing to do with that, but I would be overcome with emotion based on the way the scene was portrayed or something. I started thinking, wait a minute, that's the same feeling I have in church. Yeah. So maybe that's not the Holy Spirit. Maybe that's just my emotions, and I'm being tugged on it. And then I really started to notice things like after the sermon, when the pastor's up there praying and then the worship leader gets up there with a guitar and plays the real kind of, nice little tune on the guitar there during the prayer. I'm like, what are you doing? What is the purpose of that other than to make people emotional, right? Because if you watch a movie,
it does the same thing.
It does the same thing. Or you watch it like a certain scene, like think of like the saddest scene you've ever seen in a movie, and then you watch it and it makes you emotional. Well, if you go and you take the music out of that scene, it's hardly emotional at all. And then you start to realize, wow, it's a big part of that scene is the music that you're hearing in the background, Yeah. So it's definitely, but the fact that you're noticing that at 20 is pretty surprising to me. That's pretty shocking. So, I mean, in a good way.
I think maybe just because I've been in church for so long, and I even saw it as a negative at first, and I was like, why am I so skeptical?
Right.
Like, is it because I was raised in a Baptist church where people don't dance?
Right.
And maybe that was just like me thinking, oh, like my way is the best because I grew up this way. And so I was kind of mad at myself for being really skeptical and like questioning everything. And I couldn't even enjoy this conference that like my Christian friend group was going to because I was too busy like picking it apart.
Right.
But I think that it'll do me well in the long run.
Yeah.
And I'm still able to like worship and pay attention, just not always in those scenarios.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a misconception too, is a lot of times people think worship is singing. No, it's not. I mean, worship, scripturally speaking, worship is like it's submission, basically. Now, can you do that through singing? Sure. Yeah, you can do it through singing, but it's not just singing. And that's why I started calling it the singing service or the singing time. And a lot of Christians are like, what? What are you talking about? It's worship. I say, well, it can be.
Yeah. It's
not for everybody, though. Some people are just singing.
Right.
You know?
Some people are just singing. And then on the opposite side of it, like, worship shouldn't end when the song is over.
Correct.
Like, it should.
It's your lifestyle. It should be.
It's a posture of living.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you keep using that term heart posture. Mm-hmm. That's cool.
That's such a Hume thing.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I would usually use the term heart response, like when I'm talking about like salvation or any of that stuff. People say, well, how do you get saved? Well, you pray this prayer, or you get water baptized, or you go to church. No, none of that stuff. No. Your heart responds to the Lord, right?
It's not a physical thing.
Right.
And, well, I mean, it could be, I guess, like a physical response sometimes, but it's not always physical, and it's not just words. I think that's where heart posture is.
Yeah,
stands
that's cool. There. That'd be a cool name of a band. Heart posture. Yeah, I think so. But so you mentioned a minute ago, we were talking about, charismatic, and we talked about, like, you mentioned speaking in tongues, and you said, I believe you said, it wasn't being done in a biblical way.
No. Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Like, what are your thoughts on that? I know everybody has different views on this subject.
Yeah. So a couple different scenarios. One, I went to a church, and it just so happened to be like their Connect Sunday, where they have all the booths outside, and it's like, join a small group, join a women's group, join this one where we teach you how to prophesy.
Ooh, good one.
And I was like, let's go talk to them. That's where I want to be. And my boyfriend went with me. He's very confrontational. Like, he'll ask anybody a question. He's very conversational.
Nice.
And so I was like, that seems a little suspicious. Let's go over there. So he kind of encouraged me, and we went over, and so that was where I first ran into it. And it was a church service I really liked. And so I was kind of like bummed out that I was finding more and more about them that I didn't like.
You're like, dang it.
Yeah, I was like, I ruined it by like looking behind the curtain.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were teaching a class on how to prophesy. And they were like, and on this day, we'll teach you how to pray over people. And on this day, we'll teach you how to perform miracles. And on this day, we'll teach you how to speak in tongues. And I was like,
I would have been like, at what day do we learn what's in the Bible? Because none of that's in there.
Yeah, like, who wrote this book? And why are we learning out of this book? It was so weird.
Wow.
So obviously I didn't attend, but I did ask some questions about that. And within that conversation, just at that booth, they were like, yeah, if the Holy Spirit is in you, we are promised that the Holy Spirit will speak through you. And you will sometimes not be able to understand it. And that's what speaking in tongues is.
Did you ask where that was? I would have been like, where's that in the
Hello,
Bible? Yeah.
You are so off.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Yeah. So didn't end up staying at that church.
Okay. All right.
And then another time, it was kind of a similar thing. They were like, we are going to have a special moment in this worship conference where just speak in tongues if the Spirit is leading you to speak in tongues. And then you make people feel guilty if they're like, if they're not on the edge of that, then they're like, oh gosh, what am I doing wrong?
Well, let me stop you real quick. Here's my problem with that statement. The person from the front is saying, if the Holy Spirit is leading you to speak in tongues, you've already destroyed it. Because if the Holy Spirit's if the Holy Spirit's leading you, I don't need you to tell me that. It's just going to happen. Right? And I feel like when you say that, you open up the whole room to the potential for humanness.
humanist.
To say, I want to speak in tongues.
Or even like other spiritual things. I believe that when you open yourself up to everything spiritual, like not everything spiritual is good, and not everything that you're opening yourself up to is going to be holy.
Right.
And so that at that specific conference that I'm thinking of was kind of my attitude, is like, there's something going on here that is not, it's not biblical in the teaching, like of what the person with the microphone is saying, and it's not biblical in the response of the congregation. Like, people are just going along with it, and I could literally see how, like, it was just one person influencing the person next to them to be like literally yelling.
Right.
And I was like, bro.
Right.
Please.
Exactly.
And yeah, so that was hard for me to even stay in the room for that. And they were like telling people to speak in tongues. No such mention of an interpreter or of what the words could be meaning. And I even talked to my friend who worked at Hume with me. Like, we worked together this last summer, and she was telling me that a story of some missionaries who had gone somewhere and learned a language of the native peoples and then came back to a worship service and people were speaking in tongues and they were speaking the language of the native people. And so only these missionaries who had gone there could understand, and they were speaking blasphemy. Like, it was
interesting.
anti-God. And so that, I feel like, is proof that, like, when you just open yourself up spiritually, like, who are you opening up to? Wow. Because the demons can speak through people too.
Here's why that's so awesome. I've never heard a story like that before, first of all. And the reason why that's so awesome, I mean in a bad way, awesome in a bad way, is because, as you probably already know from just listening to you talk, when the Bible talks about speaking in tongues, it's a known language. It's not some unknown. That's what it's gibberish. Talking about. Exactly. So the fact that there happen to be people there, which tells me it is real tongues because it was a real language, but who's it coming from?
Yeah.
It's coming from a demonic force that no one else would have even known if it wasn't for those two people that knew that language.
Right. And everyone was so excited, and they were like, wow, you're doing this amazing thing, like speaking in tongues.
That's awesome.
And there just happened to be an interpreter there, which they're supposed to be biblically. It's like supposed to be taught so that people can hear. Like,
well, but it is, right? Like, if you read Acts 2, right, that's our first instance of tongues, right? And it says that all of the people that were there heard it in their known language, right? They heard it. Like, if I speak German and you speak Italian and we're both standing there, we're going to hear it in our language. Like, it's communicating something to us.
Right.
So, yeah, exactly. So my point is, then you say, well, we need an interpreter. But do you need an interpreter if you're already hearing it in your own language?
If you're hearing it in your own language, then no.
Right.
But
I would argue that's what tongues is hearing it in your own. Because I would say this, I know I keep cutting you off, but it's because I'm like, I just want to try to get to so interpret, from what I understand, it can be translate, but it can also be translated explain or explanation.
To understand,
Yeah, so when you look at Acts 2 again, when it says Peter gave up and gave an interpretation, he didn't translate what was being said because everybody already heard it in their own language. What did he do? He explained what was happening. He says, no, these men are not drunk. It's just like in the prophet of Joel, he said this, and he explained, no, this was supposed to happen. It was prophesied that this was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea of a church service where it's like, okay, we've been gifted with tongues, who's going to interpret? And they want someone else to stand up and then mystically, like, translate whatever this gibberish language that was just spoken was. And to me that's all man stuff. That's like, I don't see that as godly.
Yeah.
But
and in that situation, and there have been just a couple others, not as severe, but it was people in a room, everyone speaks English and probably Spanish.
Right.
And then somebody's like wailing and like screaming, and they're like, oh, this is God speaking through me, and like speaking literal gibberish.
Right.
And I was like, no one understands what
Right.
they're trying to communicate.
Which
it just is creating
Right.
fear and distraction and guilt for the people who aren't feeling it.
Right.
And it was just, yeah.
Yeah. Which defeats, to me, God, everything God does is for a purpose. I don't think God does things purposely. Like when he uses tongues, it's in order to communicate a message to somebody.
Right.
In maybe a language that the speaker doesn't know. You know, like I've heard stories of people that go to Mexico, let's say, and they don't speak a lick of Spanish, and they're just there, and someone's talking to them in Spanish, and they're talking in Spanish, but they don't know Spanish.
Absolutely. And I do believe in that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like in this huge room for this worship service, like what is that being used for?
I would say it shouldn't be.
Like open people up spiritually.
Absolutely, right.
And to what?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
That I'm very wary of.
Yes.
And it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. How old were you when you guys stopped going to Calvary and went to Grace? Do you remember? Can't remember if you were you ever at Calvary as a young kid? I don't remember.
Yeah, because we went there till I was probably like 3 or 4.
Okay, so you're pretty young.
That's when I started at Grace.
Okay. Yeah. I knew that Lily and Josh were at Calvary as in the youth programs and stuff for a while, but I couldn't remember if you were.
Yeah, I was pretty young when we switched over.
Okay. Yeah, because they've gone kind of back and forth with that too. Like,
my parents?
No, Calvary with the tongues and the. We had it a few times a long time ago, and it was kind of like it was back before I knew any better, and it was kind of scary. But at the same time, I didn't really know any better to say it wasn't God or it wasn't anything. So I just kind of like, well, I guess it's just the way it is. But I mean, I had family members that would, and like I said, someone spoke in tongues maybe 4 times in the 5 years that we went there, right? The first time. And one of those 4 times just happened to be my family that wasn't churchgoers. Come on down. They had like their 14-year-old daughter with them. And she freaked out when she heard that.
Yeah.
She cried. She was like, that was too scary. I'm never going back there again. And I'm like, okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. And for what? And it wasn't like, and I might have a different opinion if, let's say, that whole scenario happened. My cousin left. She was all upset. But then it was very obvious God did something through that. Like he did speak through somebody and we did get a message from God. Okay, fine. Great. But when it's like nothing is happening, can we get an interpretation? Crickets.
Yeah.
Crickets. I'm like, okay, that was good. So we just scared a bunch of people out of here.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Yeah. Just for like you to feel a spiritual high because you're like doing something brave.
Yes, exactly.
So
usually because the guy at the front said, like I was just saying, oh, we are. If you feel like speaking in a tongue, please share it with us. Because there's all these people in the human going, oh, I'm itching. I'm ready. Let's get into that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to share my spiritual gift with the world. You know. But I mean, I don't know. That's one of those topics that I mean, it sounds like your view on it too probably gets you some flack with,
a little,
with people.
just because of where I'm at, and they're like, oh, you have to be open to the way that God moves, and I'm like, well, but God also wrote everything down for us, and like everything I really need is in there.
Yes.
So why are you leaving it up to the person sitting 2 rows back?
Bingo.
To, like, bring it up for everyone.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Exactly. Because you have to have both. Like, I'm not a guy that says, no, all he needs is the Bible. Don't follow the Lord. Don't let him lead you anywhere. Just read the Bible and that's it. But then the other side says, no, I just flow with the Spirit. I don't ever read the Bible. I just, wherever the Spirit leads me. I'm like, no, you need both. Because if the Spirit's going to lead you somewhere that goes against Scripture, guess what? It's not the right Spirit. Right. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the litmus test that you put things through. So, oh, man. Well, it's cool. I had no idea you had those kind of views on that stuff. So, very, very cool. So we talked about the Bible earlier, and you're obviously a big, you like the Bible. You
big on the Bible.
Big on the Bible. Okay. So, but what I'm noticing, and with a lot in the church that are kind of your age group, is there's a lot of like deconstructing happening. There's a lot of, we don't hold to all of the Bible that was written this many years ago, and that doesn't apply to us today. Do you sounds like you hold more of no, the Scripture are all true, and we need to use that as our starting point. Yeah,
I definitely try to be understanding of people in a deconstruction phase, and I think that can be super healthy. if you're taking things apart and questioning them. But at the same time, I do believe that the Bible has authority, and it is written as like one piece.
Right. Yeah, if you're deconstructing all of the churchy stuff that you grew up with, that's great.
Absolutely.
Especially if it's going to draw you more to the scriptures and what that actually teaches, then that's a wonderful deconstruction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've gone through certain areas of my faith where I've had to rethink things and take them apart. One of those was like with Modesty, and one of those was with like fearing God and what does it mean to fear. And another one of those has been like God as a father figure and as a parent figure.
Okay.
So I can kind of see where people are going with that, but I don't think that you're allowed to pick and choose which ones you follow.
Right, because how can you know? It's either all true or none of it is, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And one could argue that I'm not following like Old Testament laws.
Right, but you're not Jewish, are you?
I'm not.
Well, there you go. Solves that problem.
Exactly. So, like, you could say, like, oh, I'm picking and choosing how much I want to be into it as a Christian.
Right.
But I think for the most part, all of those rules were written for a purpose and for a certain audience.
Right.
And that they were kept like that for a reason. I did go through a phase. I studied world religions for like one semester. It wasn't even that in depth. But when we did go into Christianity, there were like all these other books and who decided the canon of what goes where and what stays and what goes.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of confusion for me of like, why did these few men in the 13th century get to decide what we teach for all of the generations.
Right.
So that was a little scary to go through that phase, and I'm not entirely decided.
Okay. I was going to ask you, how did you come out of that phase? Like, where are you at now?
Questioning and people not giving me answers.
Okay.
But it never, like, shook my faith in God. It always just shakes my faith in man.
Right.
So,
which you shouldn't have faith in man anyway, so it's good to shake that every once in a while.
But, like, who put this Bible together? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went down that road too, and like books like, I don't know if I'm sure you read like Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell. It's a good one with that. It's got a lot of that stuff because usually the critics that say we can't trust the Bible because it was chosen by a bunch of men back in this whatever, and they usually make it sound like, and they had like 114 writings that they were considering as possible inspired by God's scripture, and then they just kind of prayed and threw them all up in the air, and whichever one landed on this side of the line they kept, and the one that landed, it's like that's not how it worked. I mean, it was an intense process, and it's like, yes, men were involved, and yes, men are flawed, and yes, all that, but for me, when I came to the other side of it, I was more confirmed in kind of that it was definitely divinely canonized and put together in the right way.
Well, and I think there's even an argument for, yes, it's divinely canonized and God like took care of that for us, but in the same way that there are books that weren't included in the Bible, there are still books that you could read or even write today that have good in them.
Sure.
That can like lead you closer to God. Just because it's not holy scripture doesn't mean that it's not beneficial.
Well, yeah, the Christian bookstores are full of those kind of books, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I landed with that, is that even if certain books weren't canonized, they should still be like important and helpful if they're pointing you towards God, just like a conversation could.
Right.
Or like, I'm not gonna listen to a pastor's opinion and say like this is holy scripture, but it's still important and could apply to me and could be like a good teaching. Yeah,
it doesn't mean throw it out.
Right.
It just means don't put it on the same level as scripture. But there's been plenty of non-biblical books that have helped me immensely in my walk. And that's what those are for, right? And I would even say I think the Lord uses those people to write those books. Yeah, but not on the same level as the canonized, Genesis to Revelation scriptures that we have, because I think that's what we have to test those other books by, right? Because if I have a book that I pick up in the Christian bookstore and let's say, oh, this really ministers to me, it really Because I've had people say that. Oh, Ryan, you got to read this book. It's just changed my life. And I read it and I'm going, do you believe in the Bible? Oh, of course I believe in the Bible. Well, here, I've highlighted every single part in this book that goes right against the verses. It's like, oh, that's my favorite part. Yeah, well, you got a problem then, you know. But other times you might read it and go, oh, this line's right up with Scripture, you know. So for sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's see. That one. Charismatic, sappy music. Oh, so when you were talking about the challenging parts of your life, you where you were kind of questioning things, you had mentioned like modesty as being one of those. So what do you mean by that? Like, were you one way and now you've changed your view on that because of Scripture, or is that one of those scriptures? Because I know that's some of those scriptures like the hardest, especially for women, because that's who it's addressing when it's talking about like, you know, being modest in your clothing and that kind of thing. So
yeah, so I felt like things that I was being taught and things that were being fed to me were very anti-women, and that's something I value Christianity for, is that it doesn't devalue women the way that other religions have and that the other cultures have.
Yeah.
And I struggled because I was told I was being rebellious if I wanted to like dress a certain way or not, and like celebrated for dressing modestly. And I was like, this is just drawing attention in other ways.
You're just like a Puritan.
That's literally what modesty is like not drawing attention to yourself, but putting attention on God.
Yep.
So and then diving into it myself and finding that there's more verses on like your hair and jewelry than there is about like your clothes.
Yes.
And so that was kind of something I had to figure out for myself, because I was always going to camp where they were like, okay, let's have a private girls talk where we talk about how long our shorts are going to be this week. And I was like, I literally hate this.
Yeah.
And why is it all up to women when the Bible teaches like if you're looking lustfully at someone,
right,
that's your fault.
Right.
And
well, I would say it's both, right? See, I've heard this argument like with the gym, where I see women like on TikTok or whatever it is, Reels, I don't know what it's all called. They show up on my Facebook feed sometimes. And there'll be this woman that's at a gym and she's ranting because she's like wearing very skimpy clothes and she's all upset because some guy's looking at her. Now, I do not sit there and say, it's all the girl's fault. She needs to knock it off. That guy is totally, it's his hormones. It's not his fault. I'm not saying that at all. He should not be looking at her like that. If it's unwanted, the way he's looking at her, he needs to stop it. I don't care what she's wearing. But I also think that maybe women should maybe be a little observant of how they're portraying. Like, what do you think about that?
I wish I had notes.
Yeah.
I'm like thinking of all these things to say while you're finishing your thought.
You know, so I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think it's like all the guy's fault, or in other words, do you think a woman should be able to wear whatever she wants? And if a guy's looking at her in that way, it's totally 100% his fault?
I wish that a woman could wear whatever she wants.
Okay.
Again, if it's a woman dressing a certain way, setting up a camera to catch people looking at her, I think the immodesty starts when you set up the camera.
Sure.
It's not... And that's why I struggled with the modesty even word and defining it for myself, and like what really is true in that was that modesty is about not drawing attention. It's not even just negative attention. It's just drawing attention to yourself instead of to God.
Right.
And
where'd you learn that, by the way? See, this is all this stuff you're saying is biblically accurate, and I don't hear this from adults that I talk to that are, some of them even in high levels of biblical teaching, they don't understand these things. They've never studied these things. That you are a 20-year-old and you know this stuff.
I appreciate that.
Where are you learning this from? Like, seriously, do you have like a somebody in your life that's just very biblically sound that's really just kind of sharing these things with you?
I mean, I have had like some mentors. I don't have like one right now that's somebody I talk to frequently. I will say I was being at Hume, I was able to see a lot of like I could just sit in whenever I wanted at all of the retreats.
That's cool.
And so I had a lot of teaching from Hume, and that's from like a different pastor every week, which is really nice. And then the rest of it is just my own studies and like time and thought with God.
Okay.
Because, yeah, there were things that were really hard for me.
Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Back to the woman in the gym.
Yes. All right.
Like I said, I think in Modesty starts when you're setting up a camera to show off your body in any context. Okay. But for me, I was objectified when I was younger and disgusted by that. And I was looked at, and so I went way on the other side of like dressing like a tomboy and wearing big clothes because I didn't want to be perceived.
Right.
And there were still those times. Like I've gone to the gym in all baggy clothes, and men will still like sneak pictures and so because men are disgusting pigs. That's just a true fact. That's why I would more lean toward blaming the man, is because it doesn't really matter what she's wearing. We're gonna look at her like that anyways. Right. And so that's where I struggle with blaming or telling a girl she has to dress a certain way, is because like literally no matter what you look like, you will be looked. That fault is the guy.
But do you think it's more so? Like, let's say there's a guy at the gym, and he's a perv, and he's going to look at her no matter what. Let's say she just got a pretty face. Let's say she's wearing baggy clothes, not showing any skin but her face, and he's just looking at her because she's a pretty face. But she's in there wearing like a bikini. Do you think he's going to be looking at her more? Or more men will be looking at her? Or do you think it's exactly the same in each circumstance?
I can see how you would get more looks for that, yeah.
Okay.
But at the same time, if you look at statistics of like sexual assault, and even in other countries where the culture is to wear more clothes,
right, only their eyes
to
showing,
cover up more, there is not any less sexual assault.
Sure.
So that tells me like it doesn't matter how much clothes you wear,
right? And
you could even get into that with like pedophilia, of like, should we force children to wear more clothes because it's their fault for bringing attention? Right. Absolutely not.
So do you have a line at all though with it though? Like do you think a minute ago you said you wish that they could just wear whatever they want?
I genuinely do.
But do you think like if a woman wanted to go to the gym totally naked, that she should be allowed to do that? Like from a biblical sense, obviously not,
From a biblical sense, no.
So then where's the line? Like start from totally naked, we're going backwards to a string bikini, and then we got like...
That's where you go to heart posture. Okay. Why are you wearing that? What is the purpose of it? Like, I understand why you wear certain shorts to run and certain shorts to play soccer. And
because they're comfortable, right? Yeah.
And like for a purpose, not for a look.
Yes.
So I think that has to do with heart posture of like how much clothes can you or shouldn't you wear.
In other words, what's the purpose for wearing those clothes? If you're wearing them because they're more movable, if you're playing volleyball.
And where your heart is at. Like I feel like I can go to the beach in a swimsuit that is a different level of modesty in quotes.
Right.
Than like my friend who goes with me who might wear something else.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that either of us is being more or less modest because it's a heart posture. It's about the attention that we're desiring and drawing to ourselves. Right. But so the negative attention, I feel like it's not my fault and not my problem if I can keep my distance. And
okay. So you don't think in any way, I know I already asked this, but I'm just asking one more time. You don't think in any way a woman should be at all concerned with being around men dressed a certain way?
Incorrect.
Okay.
I do think a woman should be concerned about that.
Okay.
But honestly, in my life, it's more of a concern for safety than it is a concern for, am I being modest? Am I not causing you to stumble?
That's kind of a different question. Yeah. That's different than saying, I'm worried this guy's going to follow me out of here and rape me in an alley or something, as opposed to, I'm just saying like, you don't think a woman should ever be concerned with, let's say from a Christian standpoint. Let's put it this way. Let's say it's at a Christian retreat of young 20-somethings, okay? And they're all professing Christians. They're all Bible-believing Christians. Do you think at any point a woman should be concerned then that she might be causing another young 20-something man to have impure thoughts or to have stumble over the way he's viewing her? Or do you think that's solely on him?
I honestly think based on my experience, it doesn't matter as much what you wear.
Okay. You think he's going to do that anyway?
Yeah.
So then she shouldn't worry about it at all.
Right.
Okay.
It's modesty and what you wear and your conviction should be between you and God, not between me and God and the guy who might be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I tend to dress the same regardless of.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna push in a little bit here to something that this is something that's difficult because it has to do with the inner person, like you're talking about a heart posture. I wrote that down. I like that. So like when a woman goes, you mentioned sports, which I see there's a reason and purpose behind that. I get that. Like if you're playing sports, let's say you're playing basketball, you're obviously not going to wear something that's going to hinder your movement, right? Mm-hmm. You need to be able to move your legs well, your arms well. You need to be able to, be mobile and be able to play. But like something like going to the beach in a swimsuit, like what would be the purpose there? If it's not, because you already established it's not so that guys will look at you or that you'll look attractive to other people, what would be a purpose there behind that? Like if you're going to go in the water, maybe you don't want to get your clothes wet.
Yeah. When I go to the beach, I always go in the water. I always dry in the sun. I like to get a tan and vitamin D and just be comfortable. Okay. And I also recognize that some people do wear things for attention in my life, and I try to stay away from that. That's like a personal conviction of mine, is like, who am I thinking about when I put this on? Right. But I also recognize that some people do dress a certain way to get attention. Yeah. And that's their own issue. Right. That's not for me to like tell you, you shouldn't be wearing that. Right. Yeah.
But is there some times where it's like obvious, like if let's say you're at the mall, in an indoor mall, you're in Minnesota, it's 20 degrees outside, you're in an indoor mall, and there's a girl in a bikini and she's sitting in a chair in the middle of the food court. Could you look at that and say to yourself, okay, there is absolutely no other possibility than her wanting other attention from other people? Yeah. Okay. So the surroundings are where you at. And but can there be times, you think, where both can be true? Like, let's say
the surroundings make sense and also you're dressing inappropriately? Yeah.
Well, not just inappropriately, but for the purpose of attention from people that you want to find you attractive. Like if you're at the gym, or if you're at a basketball game, you're playing basketball, but your purpose is twofold. Yes, this makes me more mobile, but I also like that guy over there on the bleachers, and I know if I wear these shorts, he's going to check me out more, right? So that it could be both. But again, then you're getting into the personal heart of the person and what their true motives are, which trying to find out someone's true motives if they're not honest with you is almost impossible. In fact, it is impossible. Sure. Unless they're openly sharing that with you, because you can't see inside of them and know what they're thinking, right? Right. So, okay. Yeah. So I guess I fall on both. I know there's some that would say, no, it is 100% the woman's fault because men are wired this way, and this is just the way, which is true. Men are more visual, but that's not an excuse. That doesn't mean that women should be viewed as pieces of meat
and if
simply for that reason. And if men are more
visual, and that's a truth for all men, then they should be taught about that. And
I agree.
And it shouldn't be.
They should be.
Just women being taught about a man.
And that's where the unbalance comes in. And I think that is a lot of the stance, especially, early on when they're like, the young girls are only taught you need to dress modestly, and the men are basically just taught, you go get him, buddy.
And that was super frustrating for me. Right. As someone who did dress, like, according to church people, I did dress modestly growing up. And it didn't stop anybody from looking at me the wrong way. Or
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And one more thing, though, back to like you're talking about, like other countries, like say like the Middle East, where women have to dress in the full, and pretty much in some places on their eyes can be seen. And you talk about how there's still a lot of sexual assault, even in places like that.
And just sexualization in general. Sure. Even though you are fully covered in clothes.
Right. I think a big part of that, at least in some of those other countries, is to just the view of women in general. Women aren't seen as equal members of the species. They're seen as lower than men, right? And men, see them in that way. All you guys are good for is making babies and, whatever the case is, which is wrong. And like you said before, is not biblical, right? And that I'm with you as far as saying that's one of the things I also like about Christianity is it, Jesus elevated women to a place in a society where he was walking where they weren't before.
Yeah.
Right. The fact that's why the disciples were so shocked when they see him talking to women. What are you doing? That's just some woman at the well. What are you talking to her for? Right? Yeah. Jesus like, what are you talking about? Right. So I think that was just one example of all the times Jesus was showing the Pharisees and the religious leaders of the day, look, you guys got it all wrong here. You guys don't know what you're doing, so. All right. Well, that's all I got. Okay. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about. You got anything else?
Gosh, I don't know.
No? You'll think about it on your way home. Like, dang it, I should have said that.
Yeah.
But that was cool. We're at past 3 hours, so.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I hope that wasn't too hard for you.
No, that was good.
All right.
Hope I don't get canceled.
Yeah. I greatly appreciate you listening through another episode. Thanks. If you have anything you would like to say to me, you can reach me at Why Can't We Talk About That at proton.me. Please leave a review or two. Thanks. Here's part of what next week's episode will sound like.
And you look at these things when they get reported on in the news and everything, is like, who's actually, because we keep saying the media has an agenda.
Right.
Well, who's the one with the agenda? Because if there was 5 news channels, say CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, if there was 5 media centers that we consider liberal, and they all had their own agendas, it would have 5 different newscasts with 5 different opinions.
Right.
With somebody above that with a single opinion, they all follow.
Right.
The same thing with the conservative, media outlets. So you all have one agenda coming from somewhere that they all have to follow that narrative.
Right. Right.
I mean, who's at the top of these strings? I don't know.